Okay, call to order and roll call. Welcome to all present. Councilmember Jan,
Here.
Councilmember Catherine,
Here.
excuse me, Mayor Catherine, Councilmember Sonia,
Here.
Councilmember Nick here, and Councilmember Sam Houston.
Here.
Okay, let's do, pledge allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then to the Texas flag.
honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And if you remain standing for the invocation, please.
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord God, we are just so grateful to be here in Martindale, Texas. Lord God, we thank you for the rain. Heavenly Father, we just ask that you be with us tonight as we go through this process of honoring this application for a subdivision. And we just ask that you give us wisdom and discernment in everything that we do. And we do praise you for the gift of salvation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Have one public comment.
Okay,
Is this for the city council or for this?
Open to general public comment.
we're gonna do the,
It's for the general public.
Okay.
So this is from Mary Beth Harper.
come on up, Mrs. Harper. What do you got for us?
Well.
I wanted to invite all of y'all to the 15th annual downtown tree lighting. It's gonna be on Friday, December 2nd, not what the agenda said, it's on December 2. And I appreciate some of the city folks came the other day to a planning session and we talked about what the city's supposed to do, permits, police, and trash cans that we have lights. And I appreciate y'all coming and visiting with us and getting things settled. I just talked to the police department, I talked to the fire department, they're all on this. But anyway, this is, we've got, in addition to Santa Claus driving through all the neighborhoods, they're gonna get a little bag with candy and it's already has a thing in there, letters to Santa. And the kids are supposed to write their letters to Santa, drop it in the box and run to the library. And if they want Santa to send them a letter back, they have to put the return address and it will be sent back with a little note from Santa. They also are having inside the Crook store, 2 buildings down, we're having music, we're having a bake sale, we're having hot chocolate, lemonade, other beverages, and also some other items for sale too. Christmas goodies and be some vendors in there also, so we got it all
I
worked
gave
out.
this to all of the city council members
Oh, okay.
also, and I had a few copies where Dwayne City for the public if they'd like a copy of it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, that's all I have to say. And it's gonna be on Friday, December 2nd. It's not this coming Friday, but the Friday after that. Well. no.
Yeah, and this shows the route of the,
Yeah,
of Santa Claus, right?
yes. And yesterday, we had to change some stuff on there and the program to do this and trying to, anyway, there was a big issue with our printer and we had all kinds, it took us 2 hours to get
So we're printing it. And
Appreciate
it'll go out in the utility bills tomorrow.
Oh, okay, good, excellent. Okay, thank you.
I just had, was there a change in the seed planting, right? It's changed to Sunday?
Yes.
Okay, good. June before.
June 4th.
Okay, thank you.
And we're supposed to have a bunch of fraternity boys volunteer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we approve the minutes?
And, yeah, and I think that's the only,
Set of minutes. Oh, yes, that's the
The only
only public
public
comment we have.
okay. So, yes. The next one, yeah.
I thought we were gonna do it then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for September 26, 2022 for the planning and zoning meeting.
Do we have a second? Second that motion. All in favor? Aye. Is that-
No discussion.
Okay. So we do 2.1. So with the rules for conduct of today's meeting are to ensure fairness to all persons interested in speaking either about general planning matters or a specific application. Please limit your comments to new and relevant factual information. Persons wishing to make general comments not addressing a particular agenda item are invited to do so at this time. Time limit of 3 minutes.
So, Chairman, you have, the city has received 5 requests for comments be entered into the record. Some of these individuals are present here tonight, so with your permission, I'd like to call on those present at this time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so first one will be Mr. Rob Devine.
Thank you. I wanted to come today to talk about the Dream subdivision. Lee was good enough to come and talk with a couple of us down on the road, down to live close to the subdivision, and I appreciate that. Getting out ahead of it is a good thing. For the most part, the folks down there are fine with this idea of 11 residential lots, R1 lots. That's what we all live on, et cetera. We'd be hypocrites if we did complain about it. What I wanted to speak to was the issue of what to do with Skull Crossing. We all know, y'all have listened for years now about what we do. The prior owner, for your information, Representative Lanzola, he let folks park on that little area that's fenced off now. And of course, but he didn't control it. He didn't clean up after it. And for many years, it kind of self-controlled itself because there wasn't that many people. But when COVID came along, the parks around here shut down. People still wanted to get river access. They found it, and they've continued even after COVID has receded somewhat and the parks are reopened. And it is a dangerous area. We the city closed down access to the parking along the road during COVID because of danger to kids, et cetera, that were running around out there. And they would go all the way from the power, well, it wouldn't all be the power line, but from the buildings that are still standing all the way down and around the corner on Quail Run, people would line up, as well as the area. Is you've got a new ownership that seems to be intent on being a good neighbor. And the council and the zoning commission at this time have an opportunity to work with them and figure out what to do about that area. Most of the folks that live down there in my area just as soon not have that turn into a parking lot. Trash builds up, somebody has to clean it up, et cetera. Our first choice would be let's just shut it down. That wasn't ever intended to be a park or full river access. But if you're going to have river access, you need to have a plan as part of the activity down there to figure out how to put in parking lots and resolve who's going to keep the place clean and neat and take care of the stuff that comes along with that. So that's what I urge you guys to do tonight. She's going to be mad, maybe, but I don't think you should approve this plat until y'all have that discussion. Maybe you have a couple of weeks ago when I talked with Lee, you hadn't yet. And so I urge you to at least have those discussions prior to approving this thing, because this is your opportunity to get it. If you let them split it up right now, it's likely to go back just like Richard had. You and Mark were down there cleaning the place up, for weeks. So
I mean,
Please.
it's just not only that, it's like, the murder that happened there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
seeing a body on the ground and knowing that that's a place where drug deals happen and those two boys should have graduated. So that's real stuff going on right there.
Yes, and as we're aware, there's been kind of multiple drug deals there. It's kind of a drug hangout. And like you said, Mr. Devine, since COVID and all that, it's kind of a meeting place and the garbage is a huge issue. And traffic. all that.
So I would like a point of order.
Yeah.
Good, we're in a public comment.
That's right.
We'll have a discussion.
That's okay.
Okay, so if I may call on the second resident, Ms. Virginia Parker.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm Virginia, this is June, and we wanted to come and talk about the Dream subdivision. Adrian,
Yes.
can you pull up that video? The flood video?
So I have if chair allows me, Mr. McGovern had forwarded me a video regarding the 2015 flood. Ms. Parker is referring to the attachment sent to my email. If I may present it, that's you.
I had no problem with the rest of the council.
Sounds okay with it?
that's fine.
All right. So everybody give me a second to find this video. Lee, is this okay with you?
You want to give us a
Yeah,
frame
so,
of why you want to show?
Yeah.
While he's finding it.
I'm sorry. If, as the video may encourage additional comments or discussion points, if I can make a recommendation that this video be presented during the commission's discussion time, then you would be able to make a comment on it at this point. Ms. Parker's welcome to reference the video now, and then we can review it at that point.
That's a good
do
point.
you promise to view it? Michael
Oh,
Clark?
yeah, well, man.
Well, couldn't we just view it now, but
And then
not
have
go
our
and
comment
speak
during
about
the-
it?
Well, let's turn the process. He's correct.
Okay.
We're gonna watch the video.
Okay,
Okay.
well, let me just make a comment. So there's a great video that Dorothy Joe found on YouTube, and it's the 2015 flood, because like for people who have not seen the flooding and the velocity within the floodway, which is the fastest part of the moving river when we're flooding, it's a great reference because it actually drives by the 10 acres that we're talking about, and then it goes underneath the power lines, and then you can see the Purswell's house. The reason it's at 4 minutes and 50 seconds, so when you guys are watching this video, once they have passed under the power lines and you can see the Purswell's property, it's a yellow house, you will notice their home is about 10 feet from the edge of the street. That is not what the setback limit is. The setback limit within the code is 25 feet. If there's not a variance given, then that property that Mr. Landa owns is so freaking steep, you're gonna have all sorts of beams into the ground, the stilts, holding those homes up above the floodplain. They won't be in the floodway, they'll be in the floodplain. But why that video is so important is because you can see how quick the river is flowing outside of the floodway. And so there were some things that have not quite been done that I think others will talk about with regard to this application. And so for that reason, I ask you to deny this application.
That's good.
I can talk more. Hello, guys, how y'all doing? We had a river, well, we attempted to have a river committee meeting today, so we had some opportunity to discuss this. Eric, can you bring up the plat on page 7 of the application? So I finally got a chance to actually look at this page 7, which I'd seen it before, but couldn't really see it. And if you look at it,
Which would like me reference to.
He came prepared.
If you show me that side, I could
This is
zoom it
fine.
in.
Can you zoom in on lots 1 and 2, please, the first couple lots. So I'm gonna need some help from you. Okay, I just need an answer. So as I understand it, I can't use this because this is too bright on that. So on this, in between lot 1 and 2, there's 22.94 feet of setback, is that correct? Going to the triangle between lot 1 and 2. Right, 22.94, right?
Going into the triangle.
Yeah, to the,
But you also see the 25.
yeah, no, I know there's more, but from that diamond, which is the setback, to the, basically the floodway is the next diamond, and it's 69.84 feet, is that correct?
That is not correct on the front side.
No, I know, it's not from the front side, it's from the easement, but that is now the floodway. The second diamond,
Correct.
the second diamond,
At 520. No, sir, and we can, I'm happy to address that when we get into the,
but the second diamond is the floodway.
no, sir, that's not.
So
correct.
where's the floodway?
That's not correct. And we will review this in more depth later, but if you zoom out a little bit, Adrian.
Mhm.
So, the two zone classifications that run through this property
Mhm.
have been presented on the lot. And
Sorry,
what we
gotta
want
give it a
to
second.
reference is, and in your packet, commission will notice that you also have a single map that shows where the regulatory. So we want to make sure that we're using the terminology floodway and floodplain in the correct way.
Yep.
Where, when this discussion has come up previously, what I have referenced is the 50-foot build setback that is present physically on each lot that the applicant proposes. The triangles and
Lee.
such,
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yes,
but
sir.
when you're talking about the 50-foot, that's right there where that dotted line is, all the way across, right?
Are we in discussion?
yeah, this is.
Yeah,
This is turning into discussion, you know, having the building official speak
But
on
like
the
when he's
subject.
talking, I want to know
Maybe
where
you
he's
should do that, maybe you
referencing.
should do that later during the.
We should
We'll go over that.
allow Mr. McGovern finish
Yeah,
his
that's
point.
what-
Yeah,
So the concern-
I will address that. I'll be able to answer that.
So the concern I have, okay, is that this has not been, to me, obviously, I've gone over this. Those are the areas that they're allowed to build in. Okay, so they're allowed to build down that 68 more feet from the setback. Now, the elevation at that point is 520 feet. Okay, so, and what we're saying is that is buildable. Okay, so they can build at 520 feet of elevation. The mayor's house is an example, picking on you, sorry. The mayor's house, which is downstream by over 3/4 of a mile, basically now has a potential problem if it has to be rebuilt, because she cannot build at an elevation of 530 feet. Okay, so in theory, as we go upstream, it can be higher. Obviously, if we go closer to the ocean, it drops down as we go. Okay, but this is, as I read it now, we've gone over it, that area they can build in, okay, is in theory 10 feet lower, below the regulatory floodway at the corner of the Shoe Tree corner there. Okay, there's actually a house on the other side of my property, which is at an elevation of 525, that no one can get approval to get a certificate of occupancy because it's in the regulatory floodway. So how do we have property being
Wait a minute, what
potentially
did you
rebuilt?
just say? Back up.
The house across in Guadalupe.
Well, across the riverfront?
Yeah.
The new house.
Yeah, the new house. It's at 525.
And
It is in the floodway.
So what's this, do we know the status of that?
I just know it's in limbo right now. I've been watching that thing being built since I moved back. But it's.
What do you mean by limbo?
I don't know what it, I know there is an issue with getting a certificate of occupancy.
I mean, well, this is, what we're talking about is the house on the other side of the river in San Marcos River Ranch, that new house they're building.
Oh,
And I know that property that is in the floodway, Okay.
Yeah, I looked at buying that property when I moved back, and I talked to my wife about it extensively. It was for $300,000. It was 10 acres. I was gonna buy it. And I looked at the map. I'm very familiar with the flood because I owned 400 acres further downstream at one point. And I knew right away that that's a problem. And then we moved over here, and all of a sudden there's a house being built, and I'm going, what are y'all thinking? And I guess I was like, obviously I'm mistaken, but now I'm not. It's 525. So
But that's on Wildwood.
I understand that, but it's downstream. So what I'm saying is, as you go upstream, these numbers actually should be higher.
I still want clarification.
Yes, sir.
You said it's in limbo. What do you mean by limbo?
There's no certificate. It's.
Did you get that information factual? Did you get that? How'd you find that information?
I found that out from someone who was asked to do a certificate of occupancy for it. And he would not do it because it's not.
Because I would assume, and Mr. Ramsey, maybe you can help me with this question. You could help me with this question.
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
point of order again.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the second time, the reason, I'm gonna do point of
Okay.
order.
We're in
The
discussion.
reason
We're in
we have-
discussion. We're in discussion.
We're not done with the public comments
Yeah.
yet. The reason that we have the process and procedures that's
Understood.
under your ordinances that council has voted on and approved is so that we can go through this process, so we can hear everyone, and that we give the applicant his fair.
You're correct.
Fair day and try.
Who
You're
has
correct.
a timer?
No, what's correct? Let's correct. You're correct. He is
3
correct.
minutes?
That's public comment.
It's public comments, 3 minutes. That's right. We need to probably discuss this during the permitting process. He is correct. So,
We-
All right.
Please continue.
So,
Yes.
I'll just summarize it. I'm gonna summarize something right now. All I'm saying is, if you look at those numbers, what the elevations are, so the road is basically between 535 and 537-ish at the road, and you can see the 530, 525, and 520 numbers. And basically, those are now going to be in buildable areas that we're allowing people to build at an elevation below the regulatory floodway, and potentially up to 10 feet lower than we have further downstream. I don't know, I'm not a rocket scientist here, but you watch the video, it's going to agree and understand where my concern is. And that's all I'm saying is, just look at the numbers, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two written comments. Hello, Martindale City official. Thank you for your ongoing effort to balance the community desires for smart development and the cascade of requests from developers. Thank you for helping guide the path with the proposed and potential changing Lanzola large development, as well as their sister company's latest request to subdivide the riverfront area into 10 housing units. We oppose 10 homes that close to the floodway, potentially creating significant downstream issues in the next flood. Northwest River Road is narrow and in disrepair, adding to the problems that would occur during the next flood. I understand that necessary engineering and hydrologic plans may still be pending or incomplete. I am optimistic that good long-term plans can be accomplished with ongoing communications and good faith efforts on all sides, ideally creating a win-win situation. But it appears that the Lanzola and their sister company may be in a hurry to push through their development concepts. And it appears that they may not have a clear understanding of the enormity and impact of the floods that have hit this community and undoubtedly will happen again. Thank you for watching this situation closely and ensuring that long-term safety and smart development is the guidepost for these decisions. Michelle Rambart and Steve White. So the fifth comment that came in, read it.
Leave it away. There's one more,
Oh, there's,
from
okay.
Joe Youngers.
As a resident of the community who cares about the health and water quality of the San Marcos River, thank you to the ones responsible for removing all the debris, old building, and trash and metal pieces along both sides of this property on Northwest River Road. Being a good Texan is to care for the land and leave it better than you found it. I agree with the requested forms. Signed, Mr. Spears.
What was the name on that one?
Spears? Spears? And Joey?
Yep.
Come up, Joey.
Good evening. We've seen some pretty big floods here in Martindale, and it is always scary when it happens. It's why the city adopted our current flood damage prevention ordinance, even if it does need updating. But it's all we have at the moment. These 18 pages to protect us from loss of life, limb, or property, to minimize public spending for costly repairs and flood prevention projects, to minimize the need to put first responders in harm's way, to minimize the relief efforts associated with flooding, generally at the expense of the general public. Just 18 pages to do all of that. And so it becomes imperative that we follow our ordinance to the letter, or else why bother? In looking over tonight's meeting package, I did not see a floodplain development permit. Our ordinance requires the floodplain administrator to review that floodplain development permit to determine whether the proposed building site will be relatively safe from flooding. 75 to 85% of the land involved property is within the floodway. I've not seen any hydrologic studies, hydraulic analyses, 2D or 3D modeling, etc. Our ordinance states encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, etc., within the regulatory floodway unless it has been demonstrated through hydrologic or hydraulic analyses performed in accordance with the standard engineering practice that the proposed encroachment would not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of base flood discharge. The developer has already violated this part ordinance by bringing in his fill and changing the floodway laws. His engineer, however, has provided a brief letter. And it's only 3 paragraphs. And the first 2 paragraphs describe the property. In the 3rd paragraph, the engineer states 2 storage structures were demolished, which decreased the impervious cover. And then he goes on to say approximately 1.6 inches of topsoil were placed along the whole property to prepare the land for hydroseeding. This small amount of fill within the adopted regulatory floodway will not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. However, he doesn't provide any evidence of any studies, hydrological or otherwise. And he felt that the removal of 2 8 by 10 sheds would impact the impervious cover enough to include it in his report. So I find that interesting. And just for the record, I did a little mathing today. 1.6 inches of topsoil over 10 acres is the equivalent of over 58,000 cubic feet. It's the equivalent of 180 dump trucks waiting in line to dump their load in the floodway, further compacting the ever-living breath out of that soil. It's 133 acre feet, which is the equivalent of 435,000 gallons of displaced water. That's more than Martindale holds in any one of its elevated storage tanks, plus its underground storage tanks when they're at full capacity. And so I don't think that's insignificant. And for these reasons, I feel like we need to follow our ordinances, especially this one. And I would hope that you would vote this proposition down. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any more comments? We don't have any more comments.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry for not following the procedure, sir.
Oh, you're the chairman, you're the boss. You're the boss. I
I
work
didn't
for
follow
the-
the rule. I didn't
No,
follow
no,
the
no,
rules.
I work for the city, so. The Dream subdivision application before you tonight has met the current requirements set out in your city regulations tied to a preliminary and final plat requirements. Confirmation of this is included in your packet from the city engineer, city contractors, and city staff, along with the applicant's environmental engineer, surveyor, civil engineer, and representatives. The applicant is aware that this is the first step in the lot build process, and additional state regulations and city build regulations are in place for any future lot build outs, which include stick build outs and the potential home substantial remodel application process on lot number 11. Lot number 11 is the White House on the structure. There's been discussion that instead of demolishing that house, that there would be potential for a remodel. Part of that remodel would be meeting the referenced earlier BFE marks as far as the elevations. The applicant is asking for approval to subdivide this tract, which is over 10 acres, into 11 buildable and 2 non-buildable lots. The 2 non-buildable lots are classified as dedicated lots, one of which includes a butterfly garden of open space. This same dedicated space, river shoreline in the future, could be used for downstream flood prevention measures, should funding be present for the project. The 11 buildable lots range in size from 0.98 acres to half an acre, meeting the city's size regulations, setback requirements, FEMA's zone build elevations, etc. Regarding landscaping, the buildable lots will be required to meet any ground cover, runoff prevention measures, 2 trees, and 8 shrub requirements set out in the city code. The committee, excuse me, the committee should be advised that at the request of the city, the applicant did include additional key measures in its declaration of covenants, conditions, and deed restrictions for the Dream subdivision. Some of these include San Marcos River protections laid out in your Chapter 94 ordinances, no mobile homes or manufactured homes, site-built home requirements, along with confirming future landowners conform to FEMA Zone AE floodway and other zones laid out in the city section 153.44 floodway. Regarding floodplain, it's clearly stated in the deed restrictions, a direct reference to the existing city code, that current and future landowners meet the structural requirements built in the floodplain, i.e., for example, must be elevated in accordance with applicable laws and city ordinance. The BFE, the base flood evaluations. So, elevation, sorry, been a long day. So, and at this time, I think it's good, I'll reference one of the comments, public comments that we had earlier regarding, and if Adrian, you'll pull up that map again, please. Regarding the grade elevations that you saw there. The reason that we as a city required those of the applicant, along with, and you're going to see 2 other marks. So if you zoom out a little bit, so what we had them do was not only provide that where the regulatory floodway was, but we also had them include their zones. So above lot 10, you'll see where you've got zone AE, and then to the right of that, right above the surveyors, Could you expand on 10?
Can you expand?
Right above, so let me, I'll address each question, I promise, but let's start with one. So if we go to the right a little bit.
Sure. You're a bit in my way. Can't see.
Sorry. Sorry. So if we go to the right a little bit and then we go down, what you're gonna see there are two FEMA X section numbers that say 537.4 and 537.
Maps over there,
Point out.
because I could.
537.4 is.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the reason I point that out to you is no matter what the current lot elevation is, the soil level is, in the future, should you approve this subdivision application, the builder will be held to the FEMA set elevation points plus BFE plus any future additions that council votes in as an ordinance. For example, as of today, let's say, just for example, the commission votes to approve the subdivision application as is, and let's just use 11 because it's up there. The 537.4 is going to be what that lot will have, the build pad will have to be built up to that elevation. Then we will make them add 2 additional feet to that. And as far as meeting the requirements,
You mean the
FEMA,
the structure itself?
the structure itself, FEMA doesn't, as far as accessory buildings or detached buildings, we really don't, this is the home site, as far as the living space. Accessory buildings, they'll fall, they would be addressed in lot size, pervious cover, setbacks, et cetera.
Lee, when
So-
you're saying built up, what do you mean?
I mean, it raised up, so,
By dirt, by concrete, by what?
it could be either. It'll have to be signed off, not only by their engineer, whether we're talking about a base or we're talking about pier and beam home. It could be a lot of different scenarios. The good thing is those scenarios are not only going to have to be signed off by the builder, property owner's engineer and surveyor, but it's also going to go through a review process with the city staff and engineer. All right, so I just want to make that aware, bring that out to you.
I
So-
have 2 quick questions
Yes.
about what you just referenced to, but also so I know what is the elevation of the roadway itself, so I can sort of visualize what 537
So-
would be above the roadway.
Yeah, so if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see where we've got a 4-inch and a 6-inch water line that run through there. I can give you that reference point. We didn't do, there's not a road. They might have added that on there. I'm not, yeah.
I mean, that would be an important
1019,
benchmark, really.
I'm not sure what that is.
I think, yeah, we did, yeah, but,
On the road.
yeah. So the benchmark, the build benchmarks are gonna be based off those FEMA determined elevations.
Okay, and then I had one other question about the embankment that you marked out at 537 beneath lot 11.
Yes, if we scroll all the way over to lot 1,
Okay.
Adrian.
So that's south.
Well, let me,
Okay.
let me just add, okay, or unless you
I'm
want to
showing
refer
you
to
where-
to the
yeah.
road. Okay, yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, Sam.
No, what's the road there, 540?
There's 540 over here.
There you
Other
go.
side, that's the other side of the road.
Yeah, so and that,
I was about to say, there's on the other side of lot 10, it's 535, so it goes up and down.
Can we go downstream and see if we
I
can see?
see 535 right there by that dot between 1 and
So if you
2.
go to
Right there by
Right,
that dot,
535.
535.
So that's right next, that's close to the road right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Wait,
So
actually,
that
let
means
me.
the road is
sorry,
lower
Mr.
than the bridge?
Well, I'm not,
That's
I
not-
mostly
that's
want to
not-
know where 537 is gonna be, but can we go back to lot 10 or
Yeah.
11? You mentioned that 537 where the house will possibly be built right there at that 537.
That's a substantial remodel potential in the future.
So they aren't, oh, that's a whole block there. Yeah, because all of that land as it slopes down from 530 through 525 and all that, that was all soil that was dumped there and put in later. I mean, they also not only put dirt onto the 10 acres that were cleared, but they put a massive amount of dirt around that area there, which potentially can also wash away. I mean, I felt like there was a lot of dirt.
So I've heard wash away a couple of times, and so I just want to make you aware of your processes that you have. Part of the job that I was tasked with is, as far as the demolition permit, part of this was that any soil that went back per your code, that a certain compaction test be completed. So I had 21 test sites along this property. So where I have to use a tool to determine the soil compaction rate. So when that soil was brought in and when I received a letter from their engineer signing off on it, the sealed engineer, sealed and signed, part of my job was to go out and make sure the soil compaction test was per the ordinance. And I always, it's 70 to 90. Right now, I can't remember if it's 70% or 90%, but that soil compaction, because I've heard a lot, and rightfully so, residents have been concerned about soil that's been brought in and washing away. We've been in the drought. The applicant did have a couple of issues with water. Some of those, when I would show up on a Monday morning, I saw it. They were, having problems with their water trucks. And so we've been working with them to try and figure out how do we get them water to get that seed, started out. So.
My question, I assume these are all the new current floodplain maps?
They are December 2020, yes, sir.
Okay. Question for Lanzola, I assume?
So we have Rick
talk?
Keepers, and she's welcome to come up and.
I have a question.
Well, are you through with your presentation?
Yep.
I mean, is
I'm
there
done.
any more questions from the panel?
I do. In reference to what Joy was talking about, and the 2D models and the 3D models and what's in our ordinance, and, what she was asking about, it's like, what is your response to that?
So those models that I believe she's referencing are once we get to the build phase. There's, as far as at this point in the subdivision procedures that are laid out, I don't recall anything within that procedure regarding coming up with a 3D modeling application. And the good thing is that's not just me not catching, that would mean our city engineer didn't catch that. And he catches everything, he catches everything. So
So Joy, do you have reference of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Lee, I have one more question when you're done.
I'll imagine we can come back with more questions later in this meeting.
Well, now he's standing up now there in front of us, so.
I'll be up here as many times as you guys, I'll be up here for you guys as many times as you need.
And then
We have gone through,
yeah.
yes, ma'am.
While she's looking for that, I just wanted to ask, like, whenever we're doing this, and I thought whenever we were talking about subdivisions,
Yes, ma'am.
I've seen subdivision all over this. But
Right.
then you also have your road, what's gonna happen with the road? Why haven't I seen anything about what's gonna happen with the road?
Same question I had to.
If that's a subdivision and we've been,
So the applicant would be responsible for any, let's say, so as presented on this plat that you're viewing now, I'm not sure if this is the preliminary plat or the final plat, but the good thing is you'll notice that you have an S and a W that touches each lot. And that represents the elevation needed, and I promise I'm answering your question, I promise. That represents the water and the wastewater attachments. What you don't see on here is, and actually a good thing, is that you don't see sump pumps being required.
we don't do what?
Sump pumps being required. That means that we can the applicant
can potentially successfully tie on to those city services without having a change in elevation, meaning the sewer line is deeper than the home site build will be. So, and I know there's talk about the road stuff, so any improvements that go into the road, part of their permitting process is that that road be put back better than what it was found.
And see, like, okay, so I'm just thinking like, we got a grant to do our roads further down on Northwest River Road.
Mr. Turf, yeah.
Yes, so that was with the grant, and that's like, that's a lot of money, that's a lot of money. And
Yeah.
then, well, if like subdivision is being used on your subdivision, it's all over, but I haven't seen nothing about roads. I'm just wondering.
And if they decided that they wanted to build these out, which they're not, they are just asking tonight that these be cut up. The road portion, all right, would be per the lot requirement.
And see, I
And
was
that's
thinking.
where our ordinance, y'all are council. You guys are the ones that determine what the rules that we follow.
But I was thinking with the word subdivision, it would be automatically like, whenever we had our other ones for the citizens and they wanted to subdivide, we had to have road information there as well, so.
And we
that's what I
do,
was-
we have requested that, and that's why you see the depth, the size of the utilities that are available for the individual property owners.
But it doesn't actually show, as we have talked about in other subdivisions, the width of the road as say 13 feet from curb to curb. I mean, the very exact things that our engineer was specifying when we were trying to get, I mean, unless you're saying there's a difference between what we were trying to do and considering this to be a subdivision.
You talking about
and then we
Mr.
didn't-
Carlton?
Yes.
Carls?
And then,
So
all of a
easement,
sudden now, this is a subdivision and there's nothing about curbs or infrastructure or drainage.
so that's it, yeah. I don't know how to answer that, Sam. You're comparing one P and Z project to another. This one in particular is a preliminary and final plat. All right, where I believe the one you're referencing was a preliminary plat. I have to-
But if you say this is final, does that mean final?
I'm not the dictionary. On your easements, all right, and then, I'll sit down after this. On your easements, you do have that, 10-foot easement that is included, utility easement that's included in a 25-foot easement. And that would pertain on both sides of this road. So should you require, a
Curb,
sidewalk or a
sidewalk, yeah.
curb, that's at the commission's discretion, not our discretion.
I guess we need to follow the
So,
document.
yes.
You're finished.
Yeah, yeah.
You would then tell us the ordinance.
I'm just gonna bring it up here. So right here, 153.44 floodways. There's A, and then there's B, and then there's 1. So encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, substantial improvements and other development within the adopted regulatory floodway unless it has been demonstrated through hydraulic and analysis performed in accordance with standard engineering practice that the proposed encroachment would not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge, just exactly how you read it. It said that it was,
Would you address
this
that,
right
Steve
here.
Ramsey? We'll get Ramsey to address that. That's a good one.
Okay,
What number was that? again?
He's up there. It's like, yeah.
153.44.
oh, okay.
Any comments, Mr. Ramsey? So
Yes. Adrian, would you mind pulling up the preliminary plat again?
Sure, of course. Let me find that here.
And if you wouldn't mind, go up a little bit further up the page and to the left,
Left.
this way. Keep going. There we go. Now, if you look at that typical building setback detail, for each lot, the rear building setback is the FEMA floodway line.
Wait, say that one more time.
The rear building setback is the designated floodway.
The rear
Can you point that right there where you're the pointer?
Back wall?
That's the back.
That is correct. So there will not be any structure. Look, and there cannot be any structure. or
So what
field.
elevation would that be on that one? Say we can transpose it down to the other lot, what elevation? Say lot, the first lot.
Well,
Can we,
I can give you those elevations, yes.
could you give me, say for one, say for that,
Each lot's different.
okay, whichever that lot is right there, the one, that's just an example.
That's just an example.
Well, just pick one randomly and show
All
us,
right, let's go to lot 11 then.
okay?
11, that's the easiest one, the
Make
biggest
it
one.
11, okay,
All right, you see, as Lee pointed out, the FEMA cross-section shows the floodplain elevation at 537.4. Now, that's on the low side of the lot.
so they right, show us right exactly, get the pointer, show us right where we're at, 537.
If you'll raise it up just a hair.
Raise it up,
Oh, this
Well, I'm at the,
Oh, this
right there, that's 537,
yes.
okay.
All right, where?
Well, the right corner is.
Well, the FEMA floodplain elevation.
Where the house is.
Where the house is gonna be, the FEMA floodplain elevation is gonna be actually slightly higher than 537.4. Because you gotta interpolate it as you go upstream. So let's just say that for talking purposes, it's 537.5.
Okay.
By code, the structure has to be 2 feet above that. So the finished floor elevation would be no lower than 539.5.
And that's on the back side of the house.
That's
Towards the-
anywhere. Anywhere.
So,
Now, the existing ground elevation where the house,
yeah,
the existing house is, that existing ground elevation, that contour is 535.
Okay.
The house is gonna be sticking up out of the ground 4.5 feet.
got it.
How much?
So,
Well, that's
so
down
typically,
4.5 feet.
typically, I've heard, I've heard in the past, they can't impede water flow.
That's correct.
So typically, they put them on piers.
To look at being
That
88.
way you don't, still, that way you do not impede water flow.
Right.
So where.
There's no film. There's
So
gonna be no
whereas
film.
whereas a slab would impede water flow,
That's
a
correct.
dam effect.
That's right. So the house is elevated above the ground. All right.
But you said the house was at 525 currently, that house?
No, sir, it's 535.
Oh,
They're-
so,
but they're gonna raise it to be, so.
And that's an existing structure.
I understand. I've been through this. I know, because I had my house is in floodway.
Okay,
I understand.
let's talk
No,
about
I'm gonna clarification here. So in your opinion, I can't hold you to this, and Lanzo, I mean, would most of these houses, would they be, I mean, way ahead of myself, would they be on a slab? Would they be on piers?
Well, yes, they'll be on piers.
They'd be most likely on piers.
Most likely because I don't think they can prove out that they can put fill underneath the slab and not compensate for the volume loss within the floodplain.
and what
I've done this once, so.
Okay,
What I see is the house is on piers, sticking above ground.
okay.
4.5 feet average.
That example, each lot's different.
In that one spot, that house is 4.5 feet and has.
Using that one lot.
I know, I've been through this, I know exactly. So, I don't wanna jump around on discussions, but I was always curious, I know it's not our business, but the house on the other side, like, what Mr. McGovern was talking about, the house that I know is in the floodway, how did that house get built? You don't have any
That's
clue.
another county.
No, but that's a great example for us, because it's right, it's.
I do not have knowledge of that.
Okay, we don't have, that's my question, because step me if I'm wrong. I've always been told, if you have a floodplain administrator working with an engineer, that they could approve building in a floodplain.
Not in the floodway.
If it's not in the floodway, period.
Not in the floodway.
Even if you
period.
have a floodplain administrator and an engineer sign off of it.
Not in the floodway.
So
There's no development allowed in the floodway.
my question, I know, a lot of times people, I know financing and stuff like that, a bank would never finance that, but I've always been curious about that house across the river. I was wondering, what was up with that structure, because that is in the floodway. And that house is a slab. So we don't know, do we know anything about that, Mr. McGovern? Have you heard anything?
I know I went to buy that property and I.
No, I'm just saying, have,
Focus on.
well, this is an important question, Jan, because this is the prime example of what we're making a decision on right now. There's a prime example right across the river from us in a different county. What did the county do? That's my $1 million question.
Yeah, I wish.
So you do- we
I
don't-
have an answer.
You don't have-
Chairman, I have a question for you. So because this ordinance was passed in 5/15/2012, and they were using the floodway maps then, and we've never, upped it and redid it, this document would still bind us to the 2012 flood maps, correct?
They've been all.
That document was
This
updated, our
It was
ordinance was updated in 2020. Just to reflect
2020,
for the-
so that's what it is.
2021 January.
Following this current flood map.
To refer to the current.
Okay, I'm kind of- I'm repeating myself here again, but I think it's extremely important for that, an example, and for Lanzo's protection, because I mean, they built that, and it's weird, I walk over there, I was just curious. You go over that subdivision, a lot of the driveways are elevated, this one's not. Okay, the garage is not elevated on this one, but the other ones aren't. I mean, I've heard of, I'm not an engineer, but I've heard if you take soil away, you can replace it somewhere else if you don't impede water flow. But that would be, I think, an excellent question to ask the county. What was that signed off? What was the preliminary process? Because, am I correct? They do have a floodplain administrator in Guadalupe County. Am I correct? Okay.
Keeping in mind that an accessory building, detached structures, as I referenced earlier, don't fall underneath, don't always fall underneath the BSD requirements of a home site. So they could have, as you just said, they could have a detached accessory building, if that
Well-
garage says at a different level.
It's not detached. It's not, to me, it was, because I had a, same thing.
Mike,
Is this still in the nature of the
It's a
subdivision?
discussion.
But we don't know anything about it.
Is this gonna support the decision?
I can't understand it because I haven't seen the house and I'm not understanding the comparison.
it's not in our ordinance either, though. It's,
Well, but again, it's FEMA rules.
Can we watch the video?
Well, wait, I have one more quick question for Ramsey.
Movie time?
You said that some of the homes in those lots would minimally have to be built up 4.5 feet.
No, sir. I
Okay.
missed it. I probably misinterpreted that for you. Each lot will have a different requirement. That example was 4.5 feet. Another example might be 6 feet.
Well, from what I can tell from the design of what some of these homes might have to be, they might have to be two-story homes with a parking carport because they can't park on the road and they don't have a wide enough space in front of the house in the easement, which would be landscaped, in order to park their cars. So conceivably, you would say, or possibly envision that it would be a two-story house, living space would be above, and the carport would contain that, because even if it flooded, then the flood would go through the carport and not endanger the house. But because then if you built a carport, that's not a living quarters. And so could they build the carport, say 3-4 feet up and have the living quarters on top, and that would still suffice?
No fill would be allowed.
No, I'm on piers,
On here. Yes, sir, it's possible.
Like a beach house.
It's,
like a Port Aransas beach house, say, or something. So, okay.
Possible.
exactly
Thank you.
what's going on here. So I have a quick question for you, Mr. Ramsey, before you sit down, sorry. Just for everybody's knowledge, what is the process, if we do approve these plots? What is the process for Lanzola and the city? How many times does it have to be approved by an engineer like yourself?
well, I would say Lee could answer that as well, but
Yep.
it goes back to the building permit process.
Mhm.
Because the subdivision code just has so many certain requirements.
Yep.
After that, it goes back to the building code. and your building regulations.
So for them to build up on piers, let's say 4, 6, 8 feet, their engineer has to approve that. And then city engineer has to approve that,
And a floodplain administrator.
and a floodplain administrator. So that's 3 different approvals.
And the wastewater and the water department. And then we even have,
TCQ,
so.
Live on it,
no,
that's-
electric.
Okay, just wanted clarification on that.
Oh,
Like I say, I kind of hate to bring up that other area, but that's a prime example of what's going on in our neighborhood, right there. You know, I think, council, but I think that'd be very useful information to see what is going on in Guadalupe County. What is going on with that particular piece of property.
But that, you're saying that would have an impact on the decision we have to make today. We don't have the appropriate information that you want us to evaluate to even.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, we don't.
I would like personally,
Okay.
I mean,
Video.
okay, go ahead, let's watch the video.
Watch the video
Let's watch the video.
now. All right, this is the
That's
video
exactly what I'm
that
saying.
was mentioned in the public
I'm not an
comment.
engineer, dude. I mean,
There's no, I'm gonna leave it on mute so it doesn't bug our city council meeting. However, you said to start the video at 2 minutes?
Started, yeah,
Yeah,
it's 20,
yeah.
and I'm just saying real quick, the reason that we would like you to see this.
There's not much.
Okay.
Pictures were a lot
Okay,
more.
yeah, okay.
yeah, you can make a comment after.
Is this in May or October?
let's take it.
May.
It's 2015.
It's
May.
May.
Is everybody ready?
Ready to go.
That's all right.
I hadn't seen this. They're
Oh,
the
this
house.
is Skull.
Skull.
Oh, there's the.
Boy, I
sign.
wasn't here. That's when I got flooded. How close are you, Rob?
It's, somebody on the bridge.
Close.
Okay, that is Skull Crossing, and right now you're looking up and to, the driver, the house, excuse me,
Here's the White House.
that's the White House is coming up.
There's a-
That's for reference. One of the sheds.
There's the White House.
And now you can see the water in relation.
Now, quick question.
See the water in the background?
Was it crested then? Was that the high point?
No, the water was all the way almost up to the stop sign.
So,
That's after
Yeah,
it
you
had
can see
went
it.
down
so
already.
this what, it
And
had,
that's
it
the
already,
back of
see
the
the
house.
water.
it already crested. It already
This
crested.
is the White House
Yes.
and there's the
Right.
water.
Yes, because they wouldn't have been drivable.
Well, it flooded through the White House.
It looks like it's flooding through right now.
So I wasn't here, anybody can help me with this, so look at this video. Sonia, were you around? How much higher was the water, you think? Was it over the road? Was it over?
It was not over
the
that
road.
portion of the road was not cut.
Where'd it go over the road at?
About, in front of Meg's house.
Okay.
Kind of over in the Kim's,
Yeah, a
like
little
in
bit
the
in
road
the
through
Kim.
there.
We had to drive through Harold and Kim's place.
So-
Get to Quail Run. But by the time you hit Quail Run, it was dry. I mean, it was not underwater.
Yeah.
The road was.
Okay, where I live was underwater, right?
And I don't think Percival's was not underwater. The road in front of Percival's was not underwater. I do think there's a low spot in there that did get a little bit of water on it, maybe between the
Here's
White
the
House.
first one.
First of
Here we go.
There's, they're gonna show the transmission lines that, yeah. Right there, those little highlights.
Man, it's breaking. Breaking.
So this is at 5, so the corner there, that was at 535 is the back of the White House. And that is now, the mayor's house downstream is at 531, and that's now in the FEMA regulatory floodway. But yet now, this land, some of this land is not. It doesn't make sense to me that it's at a different elevation.
And it's raging there too.
Yeah.
That's part of the property.
That's what the fire
Of this- of
The edge
this
of the property right
10X.
there.
So if you go further down and look at,
Let's look at.
look at the Percival's, because they're on piers.
They're on pier. Yes.
Their house is,
That's it.
their house is high. Yeah,
It's up there.
yeah.
It's at 536.
Percival's?
That whole area
They
is
didn't
very,
get flooded though, right?
well, I don't know, this was after it
That's
crested.
about that,
No,
No,
they did not get flooded.
it was about that close, yeah, they didn't get flooded. It's raging through.
But in theory, we're not allowed to build in the floodway.
Don was told, you need to leave, and he told Harry, he said, son, next number of years.
He's sitting on back porch smoking a cigar watching.
What he's talking about.
No, I mean, but actually, like at this time, Rob, this is also the flood where the family was washed away. We saw cows, we saw
Buses.
roofs, we saw, everything floating down the river. I mean, it was
Yeah,
bad.
not a laughing matter.
It's
I
like-
apologize about that.
No.
Yeah, are you gonna say anything or?
Yeah.
Okay, are we at that, do I need to
Yeah,
announce it?
let's hear both sides and then we can
I
have
need
a
to
big
continue.
discussion.
I need to continue. I'm out of order here. For me. Okay.
You know what, you got
You're doing fine.
jitters
Kill
for this weekend.
Yeah, I do.
That's right, that's right.
Well, I'm here to answer your questions, but I do want to point out a few things. So the part that Rob was speaking about, where there's, I'm sorry? Okay. There's fences up, so there is no parking there. That, from what I understand in the discussions I've had with staff and Ms. Glaze, that portion is getting, basically deeded over to the city, so that would be their responsibility moving forward. And not as public parkland, but it's just open space. So that's what I understand about that. So that there are fences up and there's no parking allowed there, and there are signs still up as well.
Well, I see that in the Dream subdivision map, and that little triangle, it does say 0.093 acres. And then you've got the butterfly park on the downhill side, but I would assume and think that that parking lot was bigger than 0.093 acres. I don't know, but that is what you're saying is the dedicated open space for
The
the.
butterfly
Yes,
park.
sir. Both spaces. There's two separate spaces that are being
There, yeah,
dedicated.
there it is, that little triangle.
Oh, okay, the triangle and butterfly,
Okay.
and butterfly park.
So you're
Okay, let her
basically
finish.
deeding that to the city for open space.
Yes,
No, wait.
More than basically you were doing that.
yes.
Wait,
Okay,
okay, go ahead.
okay, thank you.
Is that correct?
So it's not going, the way it's been presented to the city staff, the engineer, is that these two pieces, these two parcels don't become a burden for the city to handle it and are not classified as park space. They are classified as open space due to the public comments of wanting more green space along the river. The reason that the property owner, at their expense, put up that fence was at the request of council members complaining about parking along Northwest River Road and how that had turned into something that was kind of getting out of control. So that's why you won't see us use the word park space. This is dedicated, non-parking spots, space. This is dedicated at the deed level. So this can, I'm sorry. As you'll see in a warranty deed, that will have this for whatever should happen going forward, once it's in the deed, it's set in stone. And it cannot be developed. It could be, as I referenced in my notes in the beginning, you look at the butterfly, dedicated butterfly, open space. As, that is a good space for the city, should in the future, if funding becomes available via grant, et cetera, that you want to put in some flood management systems, that's where you want. They have dedicated 16.35% of their property that they have to this open space. You're looking at roughly 361 feet of river frontage property that they are willing to dedicate as open space to be used. You don't have to make the decision tonight on what, or you can, on what, what specifics you want for that space. They've taken their input from community members and passed that along to city staff contract.
So with the triangle, the open space that was parking, I mean, I have two concerns about that, because then it's an open space with possibly grass. What's gonna prevent people from parking there if it's open space? And then on the butterfly park, it's currently a vegetative hillside. I don't understand the flood mitigation measures that you say could be done on that hillside to have any impact on any more or less flooding, because currently it's just a hillside and that seems to suffice fine.
If council in the future decides to give me a budget to address environmental engineering concerns, I am more than happy to present you with options for that space. I'm stating on based off my experience and others' experience that as a whole, that space that they are willing to dedicate and not utilize would be a good mitigation project in the future. The concern regarding the square footage, I'm not a surveyor. A survey has put his seal and referenced the points on that 4,057 square foot piece. So unless you have a survey that contradicts the one that we have, that's the space that we have to go off.
Where's the 4,057?
Just a little bit, Adrian, please.
Well, while we're on this, while we're
Oh,
talking
I
about
see there. Okay,
the
thank you.
space, just real quick, just as a council member, I wanted to mention, I think that it's just scraps. It's unbuildable space. I think that them saying that we're gonna go ahead and allow you this is kind of like a slap in the face, especially with how much green space they do have. And when it comes down to it, whenever we're talking about open space, yes, and the parking, really, we want green space for, for our citizens to enjoy in a respectable manner, to have, some outlets. So the green space in that, okay.
It's just a green space beside a road. I mean, do
It's
you
not anything-
envision
it's
some
not
people
anything.
sitting there in that green space beside the road?
I think it
I
would be
don't.
great if the commission, i.e. council, dictated green space ordinance. That is your right as far as they're doing something that's not required. Our job as city staff and contractors was not to assume anything, and we went off as best we could what you currently have in your ordinances. Maybe this is a good opportunity to think of stuff, that you want to add.
Or if it's good faith developers that are invested in their communities and want to create good partnerships and good standing with the community, like as an entrance and introduction, they would want to say, okay, here are some flood preventative measures that we're going to head and include in the donation of the green space. Here is we're going to go ahead in this triangle to, beautify the entrance of your city, rather than we as a city trying to figure out solutions, like how we're going to fund it and how we're going to get grants and how we're going to develop it. It's the developers that we're bringing in and, their good faith measures as well.
No, Jen.
I worry about, do we have to accept the deed? And is this green space considered green space for the whole property?
This
For
does
their,
not relocate impervious cover, if that's what you're getting at.
Yes.
This does not relocate that. The impervious cover standards still apply per lot, should the commission approve.
personally, I'd rather stay private property. So that,
The two open spaces.
yeah.
So there's been a couple of revisions on this based off the feedback that the applicant has received. And I guess that's why you might see me scratching my head a little bit in that the applicant has And this includes the deed and covenants, restrictions that are part of your packet. And that there has been a couple of revisions of that, they all based on initial input from the community and individuals. So for example, this one on lot 11, this triangle, if I come up and draw a line straight down and make a triangle there on the left side of Skull Crossing, okay? That was originally requested to the applicant that become park space. And so they made that edit, presented that over to the city, we processed it as such. That actually changed, which is uncommon with projects, right? So that changed, and so that's why that space, you see that space go, be moved over and that not be classified as parking or a park space. I'll tell you, some of the deed research that we had to do on this does show that potentially the applicant does own, the property owner does own part of that crossing right there. So if I'm going in between L84 and L82, if I was to draw a line there, we do show on some of the deed records that is actually owned by them.
Can you show us?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, so if we connected L80 over to the first circle at the end of L83, we drew a line there. And then if we drew a line from above the S down to L82. That's correct. So.
But then because it's been a road and it's been used as a public road for so long, it's not like they're gonna close it. It's not like they're gonna take the land back and say, okay, now we're gonna, I mean, it's been a public road for so long, it's like the public, private.
Yeah, right, that's their.
Interesting.
So there's
That's a
not-
great attorney question. That's not so much, the city staff.
I think it's just like, kind of like here with, with, Mary Paul, yeah, the bridge right there. It's used as a public roadway, and it's been used like that for years and years and years and years and years. And there's no way that you could just put a gate across it and close it, because it's been a public thoroughway for so long.
I was referencing the legal deeds that have been filed with the county prior to this project. I mean, I'm throwing that out there, due to Sam's, questioning as far as that is a small lot, or a small space.
But highly utilized
As
by the
well.
public.
As parking, from a code enforcement standpoint, it's, who then
That's a
do
whole,
go after, when
we
we
could
have low.
spend all day just on this subject.
I'm gonna go on a whole different dimension.
Can we let
Can I-
him finish?
Now, I wanna call, just real quick, I'm gonna bring the engineer back
Oh,
on these stilt house versus a slab. Mr. Ramsey, you were talking about in this particular situation, you most likely would be on stilts to not then impede water flow. So if you sold these lots, give me an education here. If y'all guys sold these lots, would they be required to build their structures on stilts? I know I'm way ahead of myself.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, they could build a slab based on,
And they would have to prove that there's not an adverse impact to the floodplain.
okay. But I'm not gonna quote you here, but in your opinion, I mean, if you build a slab, it's gonna impede water flow, most likely.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I'm going off subject, but
There are safeguards there are prevention measures that in the future that the builder could utilize, i.e. the 1 inch to 1 square foot rule, as far as vents.
Yeah.
They're out, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could be incorporated.
that'd be during the building. But I hate to go back over this situation, but I think for all of our protection, I really think this, we need to look what Guadalupe County did over there, just for our benefit. That's a prime example right now, what's going on.
I'd like to make a request to go ahead and let Lynn Zola, I'd like to hear what they have to say. I'd like to hear her complete presentation.
Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. You gotta get all the
That's all right
facts.
with y'all. I mean, y'all want to hear it too? or-
Yes,
Leah,
sure.
both sides. Go ahead.
So, to continue with what Lee was saying, I did meet with, well, I've met and contacted many of the community members that were a part of the previous meeting, had lots of discussions. I did have about 19 or 20 phone numbers, so I was able to I called all of them. I talked to probably at least half of them. And then last night during our meeting, we had a community forum. We did have questions and concerns about the Dream subdivision, so we were able to also answer a lot of their concerns as well. Along with Miss Michelle Rambot, which I've met with and talked to several times over the last month.
Who is she?
Oh, she owns the peninsula and she's across river from this Dreams property.
Oh, okay, yes.
And so the peninsula, for those of you may not know, it's a lot of the times gets misunderstood as public use. So what we did was we added in the deed restrictions to make sure that owners of those particular lots understood that they could not use the peninsula as public use, that that was private property and not a part of access, because it is an easy access for them to use. A lot of the deed restrictions, as Leah stated, we implemented and put in for permanently. Deed restrictions are permanent and they go with the land permanently, the life of the land, which is forever. To protect the community, to protect, to make sure that everyone understood that the mobile homes can be built, that it's used as residential, that they do follow all of the guidelines and regulations and ordinances by the city and by FEMA and all the other jurisdictions, because there's quite a few since we're talking about floodplain. I also want to say that, I've also met several times with Virginia, had really good meetings with her. She is working with us on making sure that the grass, since we had water problems at first with irrigation, making sure that the grass is seeded properly and growing, that has changed. Prior to that, let me back up a little bit. Prior to that, we did clean the land up, and it was so many truckloads of trash and dirt and debris that had probably washed down river and had been built up over many, many, many years, at least 50 truckloads. I mean, a massive amount of glass, and you guys are very concerned with toxins getting into the river. Well, this probably put quite a bit of toxins in the river, just that itself. So the owner took it upon himself to clean all of that up at his own expense, made sure to, as TCEQ requires, put the topsoil down so that the grass could then be seeded, and then irrigation could also take place so that grass then could grow. We are, in addition to that, working with Virginia to make sure that trees and plants and shrubs are planted, repairing that. I know it's going to take time, but we're working towards making sure that that all of the trees are replaced and the shrubs are there so that it does prevent future flooding, because we know that's going to happen, but it will at least help prevent some of that erosion. And in summary, I would like to say that this is going to be complicated to build on. They will have to go through all of the ordinances, the owner. They will have to make sure that they meet all of the requirements, including the floodplain development permit and all of those specific ordinances that Ms. Joy referred to. And that is absolutely the case. And they're not trying to avoid any of that. They want to do the right thing. They want to also make sure, no one can build in the floodway. They would be, you saw the video, I saw the video. Water is scary. Flooding is very scary. It is not something that we are taking lightly by any means. So I just really want to make it clear, very, very crystal clear. They're going to have to, if they want to build on these, they will have to follow all the guidelines. They will have to raise these houses on stilts. Not only that.
Oh, you just said what I was asking, so.
Yes, sir.
These houses, I can quote you, these houses are gonna have to be on stilt.
For them to build on this
Okay, so what
property
you're
at all.
saying is, so it looks like throughout this make sure this is recorded. That when we build this subdivision, they will be on stilts.
Can it be, because I think he's referring, is it okay to have a 6-foot cement slab?
Your city engineer answered that question
Yeah.
previously, and and what you don't want to do is technology changes or build specs change, or the IBC or FEMA comes in and change the map. What you don't want to do is lock into a current solution that an engineer would sign off on today, but may not sign off in 6 months, a year, 2 years. Would you agree, Mr. Ramsey? So just be careful locking in a statement that you want to use for the record for future holding. That's not the best.
Okay,
That's the way to get in there.
I'm just saying, I heard you say that, I just wanted to just get that clarified. I'm not trying to hold you
He
to it.
takes it back.
No, I'm just saying,
All right, now, when these, the spine plat gets okay and they get on the market and they start selling it, we're gonna be doing this to each individual lot with each individual owner also.
and clarify, you will be working with a floodplain
And so
administrator.
we need to look at this as a whole. That,
But see, like when Jan is saying that's, if we're looking at it each time as a whole, look at how many times they're gonna have to dig up for the water pipes,
We each.
for the sewer.
No different than anyone that's, let's say, Sam was referencing a PNZ that Mr. Carlton had done back here. That when you guys approved that subdivision and added that extra lot is gonna be required to have its own utilities piped to
Exactly.
it, so there's
Which is
no-
why I would think, because it's a subdivision, we would have discussed roads and curves and everything like that.
there's also water, they already got okay to have water to each.
Yes, you
Unit,
got water
right.
from Martindale Water Supply.
Right. There was a letter included in there.
Let's let her.
Go ahead. Vic.
Finish up her summary.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
So when you're building in the floodplain like this and you're raising and you're putting things on stilts, a structural engineer with his seal has to sign off. They have to do soil testing and they have to figure out how deep they can dig to make sure that those are secure enough to support a house long-term. Otherwise, they're not going to seal it. In addition to that, it's going to be raised. You've got your FEMA floodplain level, and it's going to be raised several feet above that. And each property, as you know, because the land does vary in elevation, it will determine. Soil reports will probably borings will have to be done on each one of these lots. They'll have to determine, and probably a couple different ones, to determine how that soil is going to affect, the beam, the stilts or whatever. And then in addition to that, I can't remember where I was going with that. In addition to that, I think all of that has to be also welded together. It's not that they're just gonna have pieces of wood put in the ground on pier and beam, and then they're just gonna set a house on top. There's gonna have to be welding and securing happening on top of everything that's going on. You've got your roadway. We said that was at 535 elevation. So they're building above that regardless. So the roadway never flooded. They're gonna build above that 100% of the time. And that's why we're really asking for the subdivision. And that's all we're asking for is the subdivision.
And is Renzola gonna be the builder?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
They don't.
You don't know about that?
I don't.
So really, this parcel of land that's being platted, we don't have to have these soil reports or any FEMA reports or anything. Only when you start building on it that you have to have all that done.
Yes.
So we're kind of going into territory that we don't need to go into, right? Like, why, what kind of structure and stuff. I think once they get the plat and we get to the owners, then we can start talking about structures and buildings and reports and floods, right? Joy, you said something, oh, are you here, Joy?
I'm here.
You said something about having some topsoil studies done and a floodplain administrator should have signed off on it.
I said that hydrologic studies should be conducted where they look at expected heights of water velocity, rate of rise, sedimentation, all that kind of stuff.
And
Quick question. Are you an engineer?
I'm not.
So then, are you saying that the lots are being sold and then each individual person that buys a lot can build their own home there? Or are you assisting them in designing or building these homes?
I honestly don't know if he's going to be selling these anytime soon. If he does, I don't think he's gonna even sell all of them. They're for family members and friends. But that's as far as I know. We're not really going to be assisting them on development of these lots.
So initially, it's just the selling of the lots. Someone could hold on to it for a long time and perhaps not even
Yes,
build
sir.
on it and enjoy being by the river.
Yes, sir.
Real quick,
Sure.
I just heard your statement. You're not an engineer. We got that established. You said about driving piles and welding steel. So I'm just saying, where did you come up with that?
So I have a master's.
Was that a discussion?
I have a master's from A&M in land planning, urban planning. I've ran my company for 7 years now, and it's from professional experience that I've seen.
So in discussion with your employer, that has, I guess, assumed been a discussion, because I'm just saying, we know that property, that's a steep incline to build something, it would, so what you're trying to tell me, y'all are looking, or in your professional opinion, you're based on your experience, it would be some kind of a pier,
Yes, sir.
steel structure.
That's the only way I see them even being able to build, because you're right, there is a drop down right there on the property. And all of the lots.
Thanks for clarifying that, appreciate it.
I just want to have a general discussion really quick. My family has owned land here on the river since 1961. I've been through many of the floods here. I've had a substantial amount of debris. My property is right at 1979 across from Spencer's. In 2015, we had almost football sizes amounts of debris that washed all the way down from Wimberley. So I've seen the floods, I've seen the debris, I've seen the water all the way up to Northwest Road. Where my property is, it floods on both sides. People have had to been evacuated out with helicopters. So this is serious business. So I do have reservations myself about seeing homes built right there. In 2015, I saw the water come up to Northwest Road. But I've also seen homes that are soundly built on piers. So that's sort of the dilemma that I'm going through in my mind. Is there any quick discussion among
Yes,
the council members before we pass a motion?
Well, wait a minute,
I have a question from Sonia.
We have to list it all there.
They were just presented.
Okay.
So I'm opening it up for just general discussion.
Sonia has a question regarding the roads in a subdivision plat. According to plat requirements, each part of the land after division or assembly will have frontage on the existing paved public road or street, and the phase no public improvement is being dedicated means that no construction or dedication of any public improvements such as a street, utility easement, sidewalks, drainage way, or any other public facility is required for this chapter. So if you're talking about plats, this is the only thing I found as far as roads are applying to
But
subdivision plats.
what is it saying? Who's responsible? I mean, what does that say in the?
So this is exempting public utilities. Sonia had a question that she wants, I want to read the ordinance subdivision plat for roads for subdivision. If the city was to
Because
do a public.
they're calling it a subdivision.
Right.
And I thought that whenever we had subdivision requirements as far as when it came to the roads and the curves and the width, and I thought we had all that along that we had to review if we were discussing a subdivision.
Well, it does, we do highlight like the city's utilities and whatnot, right? I mean, here you'll find.
I'm having trouble remembering it from our last go around, and Lee, you might be able to help out with this.
Yeah.
Why were we putting those individuals in a position to apply for a variance? Because of the width of the road?
You had the width, you had, as we looked through, I referenced the deeds on this property,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And
What's the
so
utilities?
we use that because in Martindale is what we have found is depending on the deed determines what the easement is, determines what the requirement is for that property owner, should they want to subdivide. And when it gets close to that half an acre
Right,
part,
right.
that's when all of a sudden, your commission had to make a decision on the last,
Right. And
P
we're,
and Z to determine, is the city willing to give up some of that easement to accept this? It was a subdivision application.
mhm.
Are you willing to give up some of that city easement? Because now's the only time, am I correct?
Yeah.
Now's the only time that you can make that determination. Where this applicant is a little different, is they're not asking, they're giving. And they're already given it, and we have it clearly stated on the final plat survey and the preliminary plat survey. They're willing to give that should the city in the future decide that you are gonna require a sidewalk.
Where is that state? Where do they give?
So they're giving that, oh, I'm sorry, no,
Just for clarification.
We'll argue over who's gonna answer.
Yeah.
Go for it, Steve.
Where is the easement part on?
Below to the right of the word road, it says dedicated ROW,
Right,
1.10 acres. They're dedicating right away for Northwest River Road.
They're
That's
giving
correct.
land to eventually
That's the
widen the
D
road.
line.
Yes.
That's correct.
And what,
But
how
that would
long
be for
here?
the city to do. And the city to pay for, and the city to do the curbs, right? They're going to do it.
No, that falls
With each
on,
line.
that's correct.
Each lot.
So each lot will have to do it, and it's not, they're not gonna do that.
Until they get sold.
So we could
That'll
prop
be,
that.
that'll be part of the application process before a permit for build is set.
Just
That's
to go
one
with
of the
last.
things we're gonna look.
That was last.
Okay.
So the dotted line is the current end of the road, and so it's,
More specific on dotted line?
the dotted line beneath no conveyance deed found, and there's an arrow pointing there. Is that the end
Oh,
of the
this one.
road on the other side? No. That's just.
That's
a line.
just the D block.
wastewater. That's the 8-inch
Yeah.
PVC wastewater line that runs on the north section of that. You'll notice the two lines, actually skip one line, then the two lines below that are the two existing water lines, the 4-inch and the 6-inch. They have, we even have spec'd out, with this, on the city staff side, we spec'd out the hydrant location, so we tried to think of everything.
Lee, and
Okay.
with what Joy was saying, because earlier you said something about the 25-foot setback. Did you say it or you said it?
There's a 25 front setback on every lot in Martindale.
Uh-huh, and that's included in that.
25-foot setback from the road.
Yeah, there's a
And
25.
right of way, yeah, so you've got utility easements, you have, front
That's in
setbacks,
that right
you
of
have
way.
50-foot build lines. So when you say an easement, that, needs to, I'm happy to answer your question, I just need you to be more
Well,
specific.
also going back to it, like this will be crossed once they apply, and then if there's a variance that needs to be granted, then we have to vote on that as well, so.
Yeah, that's great. And we apologize, we had them there's a lot of
That was
information
a lot of-
on both of these because we wanted to make sure there was no question as far as their engineering staff and their surveying staff, not to mention these same drawings that you're presented. Should you approve it, these will go in record and be part of the future home buyers or future lot buyers. Should you approve it, they're gonna see these same lines that we crammed a lot. We requested that they cram a lot on.
A lot of work.
Yes.
Mr. Ramsey, I got a question for you again. I'm not an engineer, and I'll say it again, but what you told me really concerns me. You said it needs, and this is for you. So if you're talking about a substantial structure, like pipe driven in the ground, like, for example, over here, they went 40 feet in the ground, they hit blue clay. So you're talking about driving piers in the ground and building a steel structure so water could flow through. Mr. Ramsey, would that impede less water flow than, say, a slab with vents or whatever? I mean, you'd have less of a damming effect. The least amount of damming effect would be a house on pier, correct?
Yes.
So what you're telling me and your experience really concerns me on these particular lots. Is it possible to have that in your deed restriction or your deed restriction that your house shall be built this particular way, or we recommend that the house be built? Is that possible, or is that even, I'm way out left field?
Would you like me to? Okay, so,
Yeah, do we have their deed?
there, you do have a copy of their deed that was presented, in the packet. There are, and I wish, Bud was here to, handle this, because this turns into a legal question in that the Texas statutes and property rights, what we don't want to get into is, I'm not willing to make a decision on reading that, interpreting that. I think that's your question may be asking
Okay.
that, I'm not.
Well, my question is, okay, I guess my question, Mr. Randy, have you seen this ever before in a development agreement, a development, say it like this, that they have certain requirements on how they build?
Yes, sir.
It could be,
Yeah, I was on it.
it could be, because I'm just saying, it's a protection for everyone, especially the people building these structures, because if you got these houses side by side and you got them on slabs, common sense would tell me you would impede water flow. Bottom line, it could cause your neighbor to flood. And I mean, I'm not an engineer, but a pier with steel like you're talking about, what you said concerned me. I mean, here, my experience, this is what I would do. That's my major concern. Everything else has been discussed, but that is an unusual property. And the old yellow house, Percival, it's on stilts, by the way. It's built that way. So that's just my 2 cents.
Can I ask a question for
Yes.
clarification? I'm trying to understand, what is it that concerns you? The reason I ask is because, when I was educated and trained, safety as a planner is my biggest concern. So I'm thinking that, just like on the beach or, Crystal Beach or any of these beaches, the reason why they're so high up is for flooding, because hurricanes are going to happen. Flooding here is going to happen. So how do we prevent loss of life and protection for not only these future owners who potentially will live there, but also downriver as well? And in my opinion, this is the best way. So I think I'm having a hard I'm confused as to what is concerning to you.
My concern is, you said, my experience, I got a master's, and with this particular piece of property, what I've seen in the past, that we typically build with piers and steel, driven like a beach house,
So maybe the steel part is confusing.
no, it's not confusing. I'm just saying, what you just said is, they're building structures like this on the coast where they have storm surge. Okay, we have a storm surge, we got a river, so they're quite similar, especially on those particular properties because they're so steep. So that's my concerning thing. And I think it's a protection for, like I say, I've heard, we've heard of breakaway walls, you've heard of all that. But like I say, what you said in your experience, that's my major concern is with this subdivision plan. How can you protect the future homeowner buying these properties versus also the concerns of the river of having houses potentially wash away or loss of life or whatever? That's just my 2 cents.
Well, I mean, you would hope the way that the piers are designed to build the house, that it would withstand a major flood.
Well, I'm not
I don't know, and you
No,
don't know
don't she
if
just
the
say
house is gonna
No,
wash
no, no,
away.
she's not washing, she just talked about, she would recommend like the new coast, they have a pier built on piers in that particular situation. And Percival's house is a prime example, it's built on the side of the edge, and it's on piers, it's survived how many years? That's just about 2 cents for it.
All of the homeowners there are gonna have to get flood insurance, and they are taking a risk by building those homes there. And they're gonna have to buy flood insurance, and
They're gonna have to go through this, the city's P and Z too, and
Right,
city council.
but if we think it's not safe for the people downstream, then we don't even allow it to happen in the first place.
Okay, well, we have so many questions that I'm not even sure we're ready to vote. I think we need,
Well,
what do y'all think?
you know what?
It's pretty much all,
It's all No, we could do, we could,
Not on each house.
Yeah, no.
we could possibly, because I would still like to know what the hell's going on over there. But still,
Mike and
let me finish. That's a prime example. And Mr. Matthews said something.
That's
Just call tomorrow to
something that
Guadalupe
needs
County.
to be known when they start building, not when they're planning, correct? Am I
What other,
wrong on that?
what other questions do you, what questions do you have about this subject?
The only, I really don't.
My two
It looks
questions-
pretty, it looks fine to me. I'm kind of worried about the property that's deeded to the city.
You have 2 maps that haven't been referenced yet that was included in your packet. And if Adrian would pull up the first one. please.
I'd like to see the difference between the preliminary and the
So tell me
final.
when to stop.
This is we're looking at the FEMA,
Oh,
the 2 FEMA screenshots that I took.
exactly.
Have you ever met the owner, Lee? Have you ever met the land of all people?
I did is I attended both sessions last night. I believe one of the individuals was the owner, shook his hand. All right, thank you. So this is the red little Google mark in the bottom. This is pulled directly off the FEMA map. Sam made a statement that they will be required to have flood insurance. That necessarily is not correct in that, depending on different scenarios. What the whole reason I included this one and the next one in your packet was to show you this blue area that runs up along Northwest River Road. The current White House that if commission approves this subdivision, they are looking at doing a remodel, is that red, to kind of give you a cross point. The regulatory floodway, as you can see, is those red slanted lines. So I want you to kind of review that blue area, all right, that runs through the applicant's subdivision, application request. And then let's jump down so we can get a better picture of Martindale. Keep going down, please. So there's that red dot in the top left. So there's the Google mark there in the top left, and you see that blue area that is on the applicant's property that they're bringing before you tonight. I just wanted to show you an overview of the other blue areas surrounding and including Martindale's community. So just to bring that to your attention as far as just for your knowledge, whether or not you're already aware of that. So,
A majority of the city is already in the floodplain. Is that what you're saying?
the specific zone that the applicant is in is very similar to what is throughout the city of Martindale. So, yes, sir.
What's very interesting is map. The San Marcos River Ranch, that whole thing's in the floodway. That whole subdivision's in the floodway. All of it. And that's why you go over there and the slabs are 6 feet up in the air.
Well, that's just because of the most recent flood map. It
Correct.
used to be in
Correct.
the floodway.
Correct.
December of 2020, when they updated for the area.
Back to,
So we are going off, these city staff and contractors are going off the first map that you saw and comparing that with current ordinances that you have on the books as of today to determine our recommendation for approval. That is the only reason. Of course, council, between now and build, let me give you an example. So if this was to be approved tonight, but we haven't received any applications for build sites, whatever ordinances were on the books, when we receive those build applications, we will enforce those. So.
But that would be a longer process if, say, there was another flood in a reasonable current amount of time. The flood maps would have to change in order to reflect that you're saying would be something
We
that
could do
the
a
builders
Lomar.
would have to adhere to.
Yeah, no, you could do a Lomar or a conditional Lomar, FEMA upgrade on the map. But as of today and as of December 2020, when these were updated, that's where we're getting our information. Thanks, Adrian.
and back to the, put it back up there, back to the floodway. Andrew, go back.
I'm fine.
Look at the San Marcos River Ranch, it's all in the floodway, but those lots are all flat. Like they're flat, so therefore you could put slabs in. I'm not a builder, but still there's flat, you can put slabs in. Whereas this young lady said, there's a slope. I mean, I just have concerns of putting a slab on an incline like that. I mean, I'm way ahead of myself.
I think you're coming to conclusions when that's not even a component of this.
Yeah.
I would assume that they would build it on piers, not on.
Well, you're assuming, that's what I'm saying. That's my concern, the only.
Mr. Chairman.
What? I'm out of order.
Yes.
Okay.
No, we're running out of time.
Okay.
We're here to
Okay.
approve or deny this
Got it. Let's
subdivision.
get to it.
Have we gone through everything?
Okay.
Could we differentiate between
go
the
straight to
preliminary
3.5?
plat and the final plat? Because we're making motions on both of those, and I don't know exactly what those differences are.
So approving a final plat,
Well, it says we gotta approve the preliminary plat
Right.
first.
you can approve that. Just so you know, approving a preliminary plat would be redundant if we approve the final plat. So city council can decide to just approve the final plat if there any way is gonna pass the preliminary plat. If you can, I recommend that you guys decide with the preliminary plat, start with that, and then we'll decide on the final plat.
I think he's asking for a definition.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Yeah,
Oh,
yes. Because
um,
it's too, I mean, and visually, what are we talking about when we're talking about the preliminary and the final?
let me see what that is. That might be, that sounds like Kent.
Kent, we can barely hear you.
Tell us, call us.
I'm trying to fly because I'm actually in the middle of a flight.
Call us.
He's in the flight. He actually is calling us.
Yeah, he's on a plane.
He's on a plane.
Yeah.
Dedication.
Yes, I,
Gotta get paid.
Yes, Kent?
can you, yes, can you hear me?
We can't really
We
hear
can't.
you. Yeah, we were just worried about.
I can roughly understand.
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
That's amazing.
He's going the other
Gloss.
side.
He stepped outside.
Can you hear me?
What, that made it worse,
Can you hear
whatever
me
you
now?
just did. Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect.
What about now? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna hope that my earbuds don't pick back up. So I've been monitoring this entire conversation. I think Steve and Lee have given very good advice. Two things, well, I guess the first thing is the difference in the preliminary.
Lost you,
Oh,
man.
I forget that was.
Oh.
I'm here. State law makes no distinction on a preliminary and a final plat. It is purely a function of the local government and how we want to treat that as our decision. So if this is set for final approval, you can approve it as final. If it's only approved preliminary, that's fine. But there's no distinction under state law.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, here we go, subdivision.
Wait a minute, we have to, before we start making motions, we have to close the public hearing.
Okay, close,
Wait a minute, is there any other?
Is there anything else you guys need from me before I go back on mute?
Not at this time, Ken, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Because, have you done?
yeah, he's already done that.
the number 3? And we haven't really gone through all the dates, but all these dates have already been completed, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And.
We've seen the
and that's
engineer
it.
comments.
Okay.
so we're gonna close the public comment at this point.
Was there
You wanna say
anything
something,
else
Mr.
anybody
Levitti?
Yeah. I
Go
don't
ahead.
think- I don't think y'all have addressed the issue that I
Yeah,
spoke of.
that's
Maybe you
fine.
have, but basically the Lanzola, the current owner,
Mhm.
has said the last owner didn't do anything and we don't want
Oh.
to mess with this. We're gonna dump it in the city's lap. And if that's okay, y'all need to get together, maybe not in this meeting, but y'all need to get together as a council and figure out what you're gonna do about the parking and the river access down there.
Yeah.
That's
think-
my concern.
I think that's turning into the biggest concern right now for all of us, which is
Mhm.
if we have control of that peninsula or that 47, roughly 4,700, 4,700 square feet, then we do need to come together as a council and figure out what we want to do, maybe a dedication for the people who have been, that were just killed there. And then also maybe we can use it as a roadmap for Martindale as people come in. There's a lot of different options to do there. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to stop anybody from parking unless we keep enforcing it.
And,
But
And that's just gonna be more of a cost to the city.
yes, and if we do this, we're not really approving that we're gonna take this
But
land.
so the
Because
difference.
we need to talk about that in a separate meeting as
Yes,
far as I'm
we-
concerned.
we-
But it's a
we
part
are,
of the
though.
subdivision.
That's
Maybe
part of
it
the
should be
part of the
tabled.
Subdivision, we are saying that.
Hate to say it, but we should table this.
I think that's.
I'm
gonna
ready
give
to
us-
make a motion.
Well, wait, let him finish. Hold on.
I think there's gonna give us more opportunity to do what we want with that area, which has become more of a problem for our city. Because before now, it wasn't our property to do anything with it. But now we'll have more of an opportunity to take action on that piece of property. That butterfly, the dedicated park, butterfly park,
So I will
Like to make that problem.
friendly remind the commission that, this application does have an expiration date, no different than previous applications. And those,
What is that date?
Days.
good way to put that, Mr. Steve.
Bring it up.
Those
Oh,
rules apply
sorry,
to this P and Z no different than they apply to the previous P and Z.
I'm ready to make a motion.
That'd be,
I don't know why, but we don't need a table. I think we.
Well, do you want that public land or
Right.
not?
Because
That's what we're saying.
When
I
you
think
can
we- I
approve
think
or
we want
deny
that
or
public way.
approve
Yeah, that's
with
why.
condition.
This
Why
butterfly
would we
thing,
not?
that's gonna.
We don't need to do anything with the
Hey,
butterfly thing.
hello.
People are gonna get on
Hey.
it. They're gonna.
Have you seen that-
Yes.
have you seen that piece of property?
It's a hillside.
Yeah.
Do anything, please.
I don't even know if a butterfly.
What's
We need to
Ken-
vote on that.
What's up, Ken?
We vote on, it. We can't table it.
Yeah,
You can table it.
You cannot table it. Why is that?
Because there's an expiration
Where's that?
tomorrow.
The decision.
No, we can't. We can't. We have a 30-day
That's correct.
Oh, 30-day?
answer to
Yeah.
this
All right, what does
application.
everybody think about this?
Can we do it with,
Can the city handle it? Will we be able to handle it?
I think so.
yeah, I think so.
What do you think about this deeded property? Deeded to the city.
Thank you, Ken.
I didn't know they were going to
You
deed
bet.
it to the.
I didn't realize
I
it
thought
was something
it was
that we had.
there.
I think,
I thought it was their property.
Ken,
They
yes,
were
is
gonna do something.
The applicant has shown their willingness to work with the city. And
Just
You can hang that up.
Yeah.
recommend, they have any request that we have put before them that has been portrayed to us, whether that was a parking issue like Mr. Devaney talked about, or no parking in that space, they have jumped on top of it.
Right.
And been very receptive. So should council decide that you want to take the recommendation of the river committee or a subcommittee on what to come up with options for that dedicated space in the future, I'm pretty sure the applicant would probably work with that subcommittee to come up with specifics as far as how it looks, how do we address, how does the city and the applicant work together to address the parking concerns, et cetera. They have mentioned, in the deed, the warranty deed is a good read. It covers a lot.
I mean, I would just like to mention that the owner has had many amounts of times to come talk to us as a council for a presentation, and to discuss with us.
It's not a requirement set in your ordinance.
But it would just be a good faith.
Yeah, but they also did that public hearing.
That was Lanzola, this is Landoval.
Landoval.
What's the difference?
I don't know, maybe they could explain it to us.
Landoval is doing this.
Yes.
Only
separate.
this.
Oh,
Separate,
This
Yeah.
is not.
It's
Landoval.
separate.
No,
separate.
it's not.
So real quick, they're talking about dating this land to us as a city, correct? I agree with this, I agree with you, Nick. I mean, I think it'd be good for the city to have that property. And then we do have law enforcement we can't control.
But we've had that property this whole time and nothing was ever done with it.
Well,
The
our
trash
property, it was private property.
It was
Be-
private.
Before, the city thought it was. Mr. Devaney, who's been on this about whose property that was the entire
I've
time?
been telling you all the time.
The entire time.
It's Conrad, it was always.
Yeah, it was Conrad's, what he's saying, it was Conrad's property.
We
So,
did not have, the city had never had control of
So-
of that. We couldn't go in there and say, you got to get off this other man's
So-
property. He said it's okay. We couldn't do that.
But you could have held a property owner accountable for picking up the trash,
Could have.
for the
good luck with
parking,
Conrad.
for
And
the
that-
Okay.
violations that were going on there.
So,
Let's deal with
so,
what we got now.
so Nick,
What do
Nick,
you think?
I totally
You
agree
think
with
the
you.
city ought to take
If we could-
responsibility to that?
You asked.
I'm asking you, Rob.
Oh, okay. I think the city could take that. The important thing is to clarify the responsibility. So if you don't want to take it, if we think it's going to be too costly and we're really not going to do anything with it, if all we're doing, taking responsibility for telling people they can't be there, well,
Exactly.
you don't need to take it. You need to let the current owner do it, and keep the trash up and keep the bugs out and, and work with them to figure out how to keep people from parking on their property by letting them build a fence or put in blocks or do something to keep them off.
Well, then that would be
But if you're gonna go go take it, then you need to amongst yourselves, figure out, hey, we're gonna go put some no parking signs down there and keep people from off this. Now, what's that gonna do? That's gonna drive them all across the river to the Guadalupe County side, so our good neighbors over there are gonna get stuck with the problem.
That'll be on Michelle's property.
Yeah, well, yeah. So there's two ways, but the real question is, are we gonna let people park there or are we not? Are we gonna let that be a river access?
I think,
If the answer is we are, the city ought to take it and then control it.
I think it's to the point, do we want that property or not? That's down the road for discussion.
Yeah.
And I agree with Nick. If we have if we have an opportunity to get free, open space, whatever you want to call it, I think we need to take that offer. I think it'd be foolish not to take it. And we do have, we have law enforcement. We can put up blockades, we can enforce it. We're doing it.
You're also looking at future city councils
Let
over the
me
years,
just clarify,
changing what they can do with
what you
that.
said earlier is, I mean, it is scrap land for the most part.
It is,
It's
and
not-
y'all are like,
I mean, you walk down there, once you get left on that, is Schilling's crossing there or whatever you want to call it? Yeah, but it's Skull Crossing, but the crossroad, the perpendicular road that goes down from Northwest Road is something, yeah. Anyway, that, to the left of that, it's nothing but old tires and a couple trees holding that bank up. But there's not much you can do with that piece of property. I mean,
Open
you
space.
could maybe later, I mean, who knows how things progress later.
But the city could deem it unsafe and not allow people to get on it.
No one wants to be, there's poison ivy all in there. You
Yeah.
don't want to mess with it.
There it is.
Yeah.
I cleaned it.
I don't even, I barely breathe around that corner.
Yeah.
So you're for it.
I'm for it because we'll have access to where everybody's parking and we can regulate what's. going on.
Exactly.
I think
Good
we-
point, and
And you can still have
as a
butterfly
council,
garden.
we can
Totally
have
agree.
butterflies.
You're with me, Nick. I got it. I agree.
Poison ivy.
Okay, go ahead.
Butterflies actually love poison.
Okay, Nick, do you want to make a motion?
Wait a minute, what?
That's Sonya.
Sonya said she was.
no,
ready.
y'all
What do you
go ahead
think?
and go.
Go ahead, Nick. Go for it.
What you thinking?
Well, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? What kind of motion were you?
Oh, y'all go ahead, y'all go ahead. I'm gonna go. I'll go when I go. Y'all go ahead. Vote the way you're gonna vote. Let's do this.
Okay.
In your
so
corner,
do we-
Nick.
Should we close the meeting first and then go to 3.5, which is consider and recommendation?
I gotta read it. You ready?
No, he's making the motion.
Oh, he's making, I'll shut up.
Well, 3.5 is subdivision application, so a motion would be entertained.
Who's the
in
chairperson
Favor
there,
or opposed. Is there any kind of exceptions that somebody wants to do? Anything with the Z's?
No, Dick, it's in your corner. I want to.
Right.
Yeah, I got it right there. Want to make sure I read this correctly here. I've gotten that wrong.
Preliminary and final.
You just have to
Let's do
approve the final.
preliminary first, and then,
No, you just have to approve the final, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, because the preliminaries. The finals engulfs approved.
Is that correct?
That is
Just the
correct.
final,
Their
okay.
application had preliminary and final submitted, so that's why it's presented to you.
But we can
either-
just do the final plat. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the final plat without modifications.
For the subdivision property.
The dreams.
Yeah, so where,
For the subdivision property.
I don't see that.
For subdivision
That
property.
includes that meeting.
Okay, gotcha. Owners and legal representation. Whereas for the subdivision of the property located at 601 Northwest River Road, Martindale, Texas, 78655. Subdivision to include lots buildable and lots non-buildable. I need to describe this.
So it's PID 121888.
Oh, PID 121-888. Excuse me.
Is there a second?
You have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Okay.
Discussion, go, Mr.
We got a discussion? Sonia?
Further discussion?
No.
How do
I'm
you,
ready.
okay, how do you
I'm a
vote?
no.
You vote, you're against it?
Yes, sir.
I'm no, I'm against it.
Well, I could say, man, it's on me. Can I do it with modification?
No, that's not his motion.
You have to say no, and make your own motion with modification.
I'd say no, I'll make modification.
So it didn't pass.
But I want to make another motion with modifications.
Okay, go for it.
I still want to see about your point about the piers, steel structures, if that's feasible to have deed restrictions on how the structures are built.
Make your motion.
And that's my modification. And also, if they can come back and do the research and find out what the issue with the property over in Guadalupe County, if they can get that information. Could y'all check into that?
So just,
The address.
so just for clarification, the modification, if it's approved with modification, what you've just done is you've tasked this
No,
city staff with whatever you requested. It's our job to go get that information.
Not the.
Well, we work with them. They wouldn't work with you directly. They would work with us.
Okay.
So we could meet whatever that modification is. We will gather that information and present it to you. Keeping in mind that as soon as they meet those requirements and it's signed off on, that subdivision application is approved at that time. So just,
Mike, and that's
we'll
very
provide that
vague.
to you. Yes, we'll answer your questions and add the modifications, like adding text to the deed restriction if there was something additional you wanted. So.
Okay.
We will gather that on behalf of the commission's vote should that pass.
Gotcha.
It's tasked, you tasked the city, we work for you.
And the
We'll
developer
do that.
with that to work together.
Yes, that's correct. And if you want us to task something outside our jurisdiction, then we will have to be creative in how we find out that information for you. But I'm happy to give it a try.
And what if you don't like the answer that they come up with?
It's signed off and it passes.
So to summarize your motion, it would be to approve the final plat with modifications, including that the deed restrictions include no silos, not silos, stilts, right?
The build specs.
Can you
Bill says-
restate your motion
I'll make a
so
motion.
that it's clear what you want?
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept it with recommendations, basically clarification on the design of piers and steel structure for building and here we go. And is there examples of that in other situations with similar terrain? That would work,
Where it was
So
feasible
that's
and work.
Specifically
Yeah.
mentioning.
that particular piece of property and the slopeness of does that make any sense? Is that just like what you had said about, that's what you're saying, that's what you recommended. So that would be my motion.
Okay, so is there a second?
We have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, further discussion?
Other discussion?
So all we have to do, it's still gonna pass but you're going, we just get additional information. And that's all it is information. Does, nothing is set in stone. So I second.
Oh, Nick already seconded.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So you vote?
Yes, yes. If we're voting.
Well, let's discuss, let's have
Do you want to
discussion.
discuss a little more though?
Yeah.
Can I give you an example?
Yes.
So if the modification comes back with, whatever information the modification comes back to the commission with, and let's say that in the near future, council decides to update or add the required ordinance needed to meet that presentation, then the site build requirements would be held to that.
Oh, okay.
Of a new ordinance or an old ordinance?
It depends on whatever at council's discretion. If a recommendation, if we go we're gonna go grab that, compile that information for the commission, and present that to you as part of your modification that you've requested. If for any reason council decides that an existing ordinance needs to be updated and or created to meet that recommendation or that modification data, that is at the council's discretion.
Okay.
Within.
So we'll
within
be able
law.
to use that information for updating for other ordinance, our ordinance. Okay.
So Sam, how do you vote?
No.
And Sonia, how do you
I'm
vote?
a nay, nay, no.
And Jan, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so it carries, right?
Mhm.
3-2.
Mhm.
Okay, and if we can have a motion to adjourn the P and Z meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn.
All right, I make a motion to adjourn, P&Z meeting, did we close the public meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Motion that we close the P&Z meeting.
And is there a second?
A second.
Second, all right, vote yay.
Okay, all in favor of closing the planning and zoning meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will go on to the city council meeting, and we won't do the pledge and invocation and public hearing there. Okay, I was gonna talk about the Christmas thing, but Ms. Harper already did that. Pardon? We had some auditors that we have every year that had actually raised the price about $6,000. And we talked to them and they took it back down. So we're very excited and we're gonna get on that audit as quick as we can. Did you want to say anything more about that audit?
About the audit? No, I
Not
think
really?
it was, what, not to exceed $20,000, and last year it was 19,000
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
so we're good to go. And we do apologize about having to have the special meeting on Monday. We didn't get the information about the election, and I don't believe that we still haven't gotten it.
So the county, since they conducted our elections, they still revise all the mail-in ballots that are being still received. Yesterday night was the last meeting between the board. There's a council group. There's a temporary commission to review the election process. And the final say was set yesterday, and tomorrow by noon, the county will provide us the official results in a sealed packet for council to review. The deadline for us for council to approve that official results is the 22nd of this month. There's a bit of a short window, and we're not alone on this. Many other cities are also facing this time crunch of 3 days.
We're looking at next Monday.
That's right.
And if we don't have the meeting, we lose that 1/4% of sales tax. So we have to have the meeting.
And it has to be a super quorum or a.
It
whatever you
has to
call
be
it.
at least 4 members.
I will not be here.
I can be here. Are you gonna be gone?
Why can't you be here? He's gonna be on his.
No, I'm leaving Tuesday. I'll be here Monday,
Will you be here?
but not Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
I'm leaving Tuesday too, but Monday's perfect for me.
Okay, Monday it is.
So we'll have at least
Yeah.
4.
It'll be quick.
I should be
And
here.
at 5:30?
And we haven't
Yeah.
talked to our attorney, but we have to have the attorney. I believe he can be on Zoom though.
Yes.
So, okay, so
Hear
we
that?
will have that meeting.
I hope you did.
Okay, so if the chief is still here, we were gonna have the chief of police report. But Sam, can you see if
Tommy's
he's
here.
still there? He's been waiting.
Waiting for things.
Yeah, but we do have his
You know, maybe
report.
we need to start just letting him do his report,
Well, we had all these.
And then
people
we
but it was also.
don't feel like you have to stay for the whole meeting, because now we're gonna start our city council meeting, so that might last
Yeah, we
another
can
2
leave
to 3 hours. Unless you really wanna stay.
Interrupted. All of that.
Thank
Was
you.
there anything else you wanted to add?
Thank y'all. I appreciate you.
How far are you driving to?
Oh.
Well, thanks.
Safe.
Hopefully the bypass
Slow.
line-
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our chief.
Can I say, as mayor, for you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Tommy.
On the agenda,
Yes.
you've got December 3rd, they should do December 2. December 2nd.
Right, we're going off the last year's.
Well, make sure this is right.
It's right.
Yeah, December
Yeah.
2nd, yeah.
Okay.
Rather than that, it's correct.
Oh,
Where did we
20
have December 3rd?
That was the original copy we had, remember?
Oh, I thought we had changed it everywhere.
You're always gonna miss it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miss Harper.
We gotta listen to each other.
You can't leave, you have to stay.
Yeah.
Well, what's
Okay,
next?
Chief.
Hi, Chief.
Hey,
I know
Chief.
you've been waiting here all night.
Oh, it's all good. We've
It's
been
good to
busy.
see you, by the way.
Yes, you've been hiding. Got a lot of stuff going on. We have to go to San Marcos for some things, some interviews and stuff like that. So we've been doing that. So in October, we had 142 citations issued. Actually, citations and warnings, 161 warnings or 161 citations and 81 warnings. There's our patrol activities and then all the different violations that went along with those citations and warnings.
I wanted to point out 66 in the parks.
So those are parks checks. That's how many times we've gone to the parks and checked on them and made sure that everything's going good. So every time that we go check out on our computer that we're doing parks checks.
So you can handle that skulls, no problem, right?
That's, the parks checks are Skull Road.
So we got that land, you
and the
can,
two parks here.
so if we get that,
That's all.
so we got that land, you can handle it. And,
Okay, yeah, we should have been asking you.
Yes.
I had well, no, finish your report and
Yes, if you
then I'll
go
ask.
back to the other one,
Sure.
the activities. So
it's
yeah,
all names, dude.
we had a lot of animal calls. This past time, we took a lot of dogs over to the Humane Society.
We've had a lot dropped off lately, haven't we?
Right.
Oh, man.
So you guys busy in the cage that Lee provided?
Did my dog get?
No, they won't, I mean, we're going.
Don't fit? Doesn't fit?
Throw-
Come
yeah, throw it
on.
Get in there.
That's how you catch up.
That's how you catch up.
All right, go ahead.
And
Let's
then,
move it.
so, calls for
Almost 10
service
o'clock.
and just random things. Incident reports, we had 4. Activity, assist EMS and county on calls, 10. Motorist assist and public assist, 11.
Oh,
Traffic control, where we got out and directed traffic and so forth, 5 times. 2 crash reports and 2 offense reports. And those offenses are just
consequences.
I wanted to ask you about, I noticed about the car that was in the back, one of them in particular, we had been given those 4 posts and they were all stuck beneath the car. Are those still around?
No, those posts were, please.
Or least, so I noticed just one there because I was gonna use them in the park to build you a cable on posts that you requested at phase 1.
Yes, sir.
So are those posts still around?
No, they were returned. And they had sat back there and we got complaints, for,
So we just have one. I saw one. Okay.
That one was still under there when I aired out the tires. So those vehicles, that vehicle that's moved now
Okay.
was drivable and it was looking really bad because the trees and everything's coming up. So I went and washed it and cleaned it up and I moved it, to another location. This one here will not run at all. So I had a mechanic come by and look at them and we're gonna do some stuff, but I'm waiting on a record to get that vehicle moved away from there. So that vehicle will be moved here shortly.
When you said do some stuff, what is that? You said,
Inflate the tires.
Yeah, and inflate the tires, I had to just get it.
I mean, you're gonna, are they worth, what-
They're worth selling.
They're worth selling or keeping?
No, they're worth selling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get it up.
Yeah.
they're worth
Hey, he'll
selling.
tell us when it's time, right?
Yeah, they're worth selling and I took pictures after I cleaned it all.
That's all, that's not this.
Yeah. So I got it all cleaned up and that vehicle put away and then we'll get this other one moved that way. So it's not there and it's cleaned up back there. It's better.
Oh, good.
I just couldn't get a record right away. And I'm trying to get one to volunteer their services so that we don't have to pay the tow fee because it's expensive.
But we've got insurance that covers it.
Well, if only if we're in a crash or something like that, but just not to regular tow, just to say, hey, let's just tow.
Oh, we don't have to.
I had also a question about, because recently we approved the purchases on the Voyager gas card and how many times the cars were filled up or whatever. But I've seen a lot of times in police vehicles that if they're stationary, whether it be someone goes into a building or if they're doing something that at most times the vehicles are running. What is the reasoning behind leaving the vehicles running for long periods of time as opposed to, say, turning it off and then you do something and you come back and turn the car?
Depends on why. There's a lot of reasons why. It's got all the computers on board, and when you turn them off, everything starts automatically shutting down at various times.
Yes.
So depending on what we're doing, we may be recording because you have the camera systems in there, you have the computer system in there, and all that stuff will shut down at various times, and you need that stuff to.
And so if you turn it off and then you would turn it back on, it would have to restart all that. You'd have to upload your computer and all that stuff.
And
So,
also like the camera, depending if we're on a call for service or whatever, when we're recording, we have our stuff on, it's gonna shut down and we won't record anything after that.
oh, so you can't use your vehicle, I mean, your recording unless the vehicle's running?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a good, I'm glad you asked that. We
Yeah.
were wondering.
We do turn them off whenever the certain times
When
whenever.
you sign that check for $1,000 of gas, it's like, why did they leave that running?
Well, I mean, really this island, I mean, it does use gas, I'm not gonna lie, but, yeah, that's not that much. It's driving back and
Yeah,
forth and then,
And we're getting lots of good reports about the coverage, so we're not complaining.
okay, I mean, I know that's one of the byproducts of patrolling. You have to, use gas, use tires, equipment and everything else, oil changes and everything else goes along with that.
Thank you.
Hey, Chief, do y'all have, like uniform jackets and so weather is getting cooler, or do y'all need to get, colder weather uniforms?
So I was gonna talk to the mayor about that this
Okay.
evening, about getting some coats.
Yeah, just so that way, you're easily still identified and, yeah,
Yeah,
that way y'all are warm. Mhm.
Yes, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk to him about coats. We're Under Armour. So, yes. And I think it's pretty much the same, just like I say, we're getting back to where we should be on a lot of numbers and everything else. Our numbers are getting up there.
We have talked a lot tonight about flooding. Do we need to update our disaster plan, say where we would meet if there was a crisis?
Oh, we talked to the emergency management people
Oh,
about that.
okay.
Yeah, and
Well, you
they'll
would work
call
with
us,
them.
yeah, they'll call me and say, hey, we're gonna be here. This is where we're gonna be. This is where the command center is gonna be, the command post, or wherever they set up.
Okay.
And we will.
You'll work accordingly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Excuse me, but that's a good question. Who are the point of contacts? for a disaster, given a flood.
Emergency management.
So say they can't reach you, then who's next?
Hector Rangel, it's Hector Rangel, and then for the, to set the alarm off, it would be, they would call over to Caldwell County, and then the main station would do the alarm, and then the one who has the key for the alarm here is Chris Germer.
But just.
Yeah, the fire department's gonna do their thing.
Or as far as Martindale Police, do they contact you, and then who, if they can't get a hold of you, given whatever the circumstance may be,
The mayor.
the mayor?
Do we even know if the alarm, when it ever sounds, if say the people that they just built this subdivision up at Skull Bridge would hear it? Do we even know that?
I do not know that.
We're
We
still
should find that
working
out.
with them to have some tests.
I'd like to see one. I've never heard one
We're
ever.
gonna make sure you're standing right next to the alarm
I'll be like
when
that.
it goes off.
You gotta hear for the rest of your life, Sam.
Tell me if it
What?
works.
Yeah.
Jan, you're frowning. What is it?
I thought they did tests when Kim was here.
No, I
Can you
don't
know
think I've
that,
ever
Adrian?
heard it go off.
I'm right next to it. They'll have the room.
Yeah.
It's gonna be lucky.
Could be the test.
Another thing, the police department was here for the, trunk or treat, which I think was an awesome thing. So very
It was nice, and we had a monster on the loose.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try not to scare everybody.
Tommy.
That was on news.
And then we're gonna need you as the Grinch on Christmas.
Yes.
During the Christmas parade.
That is my birthday.
Oh, Tommy. Yeah, we need to
Christmas
get
Day?
order a Grinch uniform.
You got ripped off as a kid, didn't you?
That'd be his coat.
Make up for it now.
He's gonna get it.
I know what I'm getting.
I appreciate
getting.
all the support and everyone appreciates the support. Keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Okay, we had some minutes to approve.
So these are the minutes from the last meeting we had with Thomas Church to approve the design plans for the Northwest River Road project after they had informed you guys about the reduction of the size of the project. Langford needs these minutes and signed by the mayor and myself for the grant.
Yeah, and also I think it gave us those, options too. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's, they want
Right.
signed minutes, which plan did Martindale City Council decided on, essentially. And so they can scan this to the state and the GLO can approve the.
And all that's on there, right?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the Martindale regular city council meeting for, July 25th, 2022.
Special city council meeting, but yes.
Oh, for the special city council. Excuse me.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Aye.
Okay,
Good to me.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so the motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to 4.1A, the green tag ordinance. I hope you all have read this. This is something that we need in order to help enforce people who want to start building without a building permit. And sometimes they go and they get the electric pole and get hooked up to electricity before they have any permits from the city to do anything. This way, it would give us more teeth to,
Get permits.
yeah,
And
to stop
inspections.
the work orders and stuff. Lee, do you want to say anything about this?
I'll answer any questions.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
Do we put the tags on or does Blue Bonnet? I mean, do you
The
put the
building
tags on or
official.
does Blue Bonnet?
The future building official would do
Any building official would do it.
that. That's a good way.
future, you had me a little worried.
You're not leaving us.
I make a motion. I make a motion, of the city, the Martindale City Council to file under 150 building regulations of the Martindale City Code of Ordinances, the green tag.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay.
I would like to make one comment on this. This is
Okay.
creating a new subchapter of code enforcement. And so when we're thinking about parking issues and all that other stuff, what should be assigned to the code enforcers of the city? Granted, we might have 2 code enforcers one day, 3, a team of 20. They'll follow these rules set under the code enforcement section, under the building
Yes.
regulations of the city code of ordinances. So this is initiating a new subchapter that
Oh,
city council
wait.
could build on too.
This 150.10, okay.
I have a little question.
Of course.
A little one.
Yeah, it's just clarification. So I know this is like on structures that are being built. And then, what about like, electrical in the yard for RVs?
Could you be more specific?
Like, cause that's like running electricity to a structure. Like can somebody run a electric pole or do an electrical outlet off of their electricity at their house and hook up an RV to it?
Yes.
You talking about new service or existing service?
They would already have service at their house.
Like if I was gonna put one.
No, because they have to have the, like.
No, because the meter would already be present.
So
we
that's
would
okay.
rely on, well, you know, the placement of that disconnect would help determine that question. As far as, for example, we had one on Northwest River Road that moved in an RV and was able to set up service. And I was just passing by and
And get a
noticed
pole.
and had a pole. And unfortunately, that pole was in violation of the NEC codes by the contractor that put it in. You know, but as far as existing service and putting in a new disconnect, we would not remove any existing tag.
So that would be okay.
I'm not saying that it would still require a permit,
Mhm.
but what do you mean be okay?
I don't, maybe this question is too deep. Maybe it's not a little
Not little
question.
question.
Yeah.
It's not a little question.
Always,
Think
so
that's
yes.
not okay? I mean, I kind of.
When the utility company will create a new pole. And they're setting up this new pole to
The meter.
power.
To build
Right.
for a new house.
Right.
A remodel,
Substantial
remodel.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to get that new structure remodel, substantial improvements would have to have that green tag. They will first have to coordinate with Lee Rust. So if the person with the new structure, we'll put it as that, because that's what new work is, the proper definition. With the new work, would have to coordinate with the city before the utility company. So we're requiring these new people to come in, or these new work, to follow the proper procedures of the city code of ordinances. Because they're skipping permits, and our current utility provider for electricity, there's nothing holding them against making new connections.
There's nothing against them making new connections.
Right,
Well, all they have to do
That
is
are-
call Blue Bonnet. And
right.
Blue Bonnet has a new customer, so they just come and pull it full.
Yeah.
Even if it's an unsafe structure,
Like on Vannon Street.
or violating our land use ordinances. An example is, to the east of the city, there's a current home, and they put a mobile home next to it on one tract of land, which now got electricity through Blue Bonnet, powering 2 homes on 1 tract, which is a violation of our city code of ordinances, where there shall only be 1 residential unit per lot.
And this green tag would help that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But you could still install like a new sub panel and not have to have a tag.
This is putting restrictions
on new build,
on basically the utility companies that
Right. If you
work.
have to call in the electric company isn't going to be able to do
No.
anything until there's a green tag.
That's right.
That says it all. Well stated,
So,
Jan.
yes.
Okay,
Well stated, man.
great.
Good way to state it.
Yes.
Good job, Jan.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Jan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sonia, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Sam?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion carries.
Oh, you're second. We worked on this pretty hard, not gonna lie.
That was easy, wasn't it?
I really have to commend
So we do
Adrian.
have-
He's been working on ordinances and has just jumped right in there and,
Right.
learning a lot.
Guy is the hero.
Okay, so the last one is just for discussion. We just wondered how the council felt about possibly having a different governing body to be the planning and zoning commission instead of the city council members.
I'm against it. Personally.
Right now, I think
We're so
that
small.
the city council works well enough with the city to stay pretty well informed to make the P and Z decisions right now. Otherwise, we'd be having to get a whole, another group of people that'll probably be coming in and bugging the city people and, having to explain to two different commissions, the city council and the commission because P and Z, I think it's kind of.
I agree with you. The city's small enough, maybe in the future, even when it grows and it gets bigger. But I like it because we're elected officials, and if people don't like what we're doing, they get rid of us.
I'm gonna tell you why I think I am for having someone coming in and do it. Number one, you would be able to get people who have an expertise in the fields of building and planning and zoning, and then you're able to hand select those people that will do the work, do the studying, know the lingo, know everything. Sometimes we were here since 6:30 to 9:30 because of what we do. That's not even counting how much I do the work at home, and I look at my packets and I send emails, and I don't mind doing the work, but there's still even some of the research that I have of the terms that, I really don't, that I don't understand. So I think it would be beneficial for the city to have a separate planning and zoning, because they could meet at 1, they could meet at 2:30, they could meet multiple times a day. And I think they would be better suited to handle the influx of developments and everything that's gonna come in, and would be able to work with Lee more, hand in hand and in unison than we are able to.
Don't they still only make recommendations?
Yes.
Do your process.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
The process. It's a
And that is a good point. But,
Yeah.
What do you think, Sam?
and you notice that a lot of the citizens out here have a lot more information than I had.
Yeah.
So that is a very good.
I think I like the idea. It would also help his job out a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I also don't mind it, but we already have a historic committee, a Parks Advisory Committee, and I haven't heard from them in so long. And what's the third one?
River.
River Committee. The
Yeah.
River Committee has been stellar in making reports and all that, but we have not heard from the Parks Advisory Committee or the Historic Committee. So if we can reconstruct or enforce the ordinance that says you have to meet monthly, if you don't show up for the meeting for more than 3 times in a row, you're taken off of the committee. None of these things are enforced by us so far, because I haven't heard from the Historic Committee in probably over a year, and almost the same for the Parks Advisory Committee. So if we can stick to the guns, stick to the rules and enforce them, and of course, that's more work for you possibly. But I mean, those are the faults that I'm seeing with the committees that we currently have. And then we're talking about bringing in a 4th committee. So
But I think our city is growing. I think our citizens deserve it. I think developments that are coming in, they need to have, the committee that can meet more than one time. We don't have a set time on how many times that they could meet. And that's people that Lee could work with. And those are people that, like the River Committee, we we ultimately said who was gonna be on the board. And they were chosen because of their expertise in their field and their knowledge of the river. So I'm sure that the same thing would be done with this. So I am totally in favor of having a planning and zoning commission.
I also think that this P and Z is a lot more direct. There's a lot, it's like nothing against River Committee, but there aren't issues that we have to vote on as a council. And we don't really need their advice on a week-to-week basis.
Monthly.
For P and Z, we need more advice from a committee that knows what they're talking about, and we can use it.
So where would you get these people? Volunteer?
I mean, I would love to be on it.
But
I'm interested in it. you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I
but,
think council members
but
could
the advantage,
still be on it too.
but the big advantage, you're more informed as a council person. If you're on planning and zoning, you make a decision, when you vote, you know exactly what's going on because you've been dealing with Lee or whatever. Therefore, you make an informed decision instead of somebody else.
Hey, Mike, can I chime in for a second?
Let me finish. So
Mike,
like,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately, the final decision will still be made by the council anyway. So that is something to consider. Whatever planning and zoning votes on will ultimately go before council for their final consideration.
But what he's saying is that they're most of the council they're in the future still may not be informed and just go trust the committee.
I don't.
Totally.
Yes, please.
So, if you're looking for community involvement or requiring a developer to come before the city more than once, having a separate commission made up of residents forces that developers, I guarantee they're gonna not only be at their P and Z hearing, but they're gonna be at the council meeting hearing also when that makes sense. You're there, you're gonna see them twice.
And maybe that'll be time for, like if they're in the parks, well, we want this park development land. Like this is what you're gonna do as far as a park development fee. This is what we're gonna do as far as for a river protection. Then you're able to kind of like have all that together because I think like with developments like that is our prime opportunity as a city to negotiate deals with developers as far as like, a benefit for the city.
Because it would be planned. I am in favor of one. I just don't know if we're ready for one yet.
yeah,
We're ready.
I think in the future we
but
would be.
I think this is good that we're talking about it and that we ought to keep it on the future agenda.
Are we ready, Lee?
Well,
Or-
I have just one other quick question.
We're ready.
I know in the other committees though, that it is, the components of the committee can be if you're in the ETJ of Martindale. Some people have expressed concerns and said they want them to only be city residents or people in the ETJ. So what does this say?
It says that you have to be a resident of the city, even if it's
To be on the commission.
It'd be like a council person.
and the reason this is being brought up during this meeting is that soon we're gonna present a board ordinance that includes boards and commissions ordinance. And so there's already standards for a volunteer commission on established in our ordinances. One being they had to attend, you basically follow the rules of a council member having to attend the 3 meetings. This has been more thought out and thorough than the previous boards and commission ordinances you've seen. They will basically serve as a council member. However, they're not an elected official and council will still be the final say for decisions of the commission.
And I understand.
One of the benefits to having a residential board is they can evaluate the policies of our land use and zoning regulations that city council right now has a hard time, especially since you guys are bound by the Open Meetings Act, where you cannot discuss amongst each other so freely.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so they can formulate plans and
Well,
come up with, and
Commission
one,
would have to do that too.
right. But this is a city council and that is, you're held to that degree at a much higher level since you're an elected official.
So you're saying eventually the other committees will have to adhere to these stipulations as specified in the planning and zoning, possible planning and zoning committee, Because there's been many times that one of the components of the Parks Advisory Committee hasn't been to a meeting at all, but nothing has been done about it. So, but if you're saying that you're going to enforce those parameters committee-wide, then I am more leaning towards agreeing towards it.
This is in preparation of that board ordinance. Although a lot of what's mentioned in here, which I encourage you guys to look at it sometime this week, whenever you can, to review the current ordinance of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which will similarly reflect what the other boards and commissions will follow as well, as far as standards, attendance, expected results of all the boards. Now, whether council might entertain the idea of a separate commission, that'll be kind of a delayed process, as Jen mentioned. We might not be ready for it today. However, maybe seeking applicants for a year, we might have a decent applicant pool for the council to consider to approve.
I think how many development agreements are before you right now, like for building
That I know of, or that I have an application?
that you have application? But I mean, like, I know we've seen, pictures of the homes over there, like, you know, we've seen, like, there's major stuff that's coming.
It's coming.
And it's not only development. I mean, it's also, you know, how to address the dilapidated homes.
Yeah.
Part of our strategic plan is to create a planning and zoning master plan, which this council or this commission would, if there's nothing to do and they say that we don't have a reason to meet this month, that's not true. You will have to work towards developing this plan or improving our current ordinances of our land.
There's always something to do.
There's always something to do.
And I think us as being like the council that we have been, I think we've been able to, like, you know, like project and to be able to look in the future. And we're so lucky to have Lee on our planning and zoning board. Like, he's doing an amazing job. But like, if he even had like more support, if he had, while he was here at work, he's here to almost, it's past 10, you know, but like if he was able to like have a group,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought I was here all day.
We're in good change, daylight savings.
No, but I think like even if we started out now and like you have to start somewhere. If we still say we're gonna wait, then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, well, why don't we?
I think this is just.
Well, we put
we're
it
just
on
having a
here just to
discussion.
discuss.
It's just discussion.
Yeah.
You know, what will help is what kind of applicants or people would you like to see? Would you like to see a floodplain administrator? Would you like to see a previous code enforcer, a previous mayor?
Yeah.
What are?
Engineering
Real
experience,
estate
building
You-
experience,
it's
construction
not-
experience, anything.
Exactly.
I mean, come up with an application for us to review and then we can decide whether or not we can, and come up with an action item saying, okay, let's go ahead and start collecting applications and that we'll choose by the end of.
There you
such-
go,
such
Jan.
date.
And this is not uncommon. Many other cities.
So we can still keep
required
this on the
boards to consist of said person with certain qualification experiences. Even then, some boards and commissions still even require that the director of a department from the city to be part of the board. So if we wanted to include Lee or any building official to be part of that board, they can be.
I am part of the.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are the point here, the main.
Oh, okay.
But you can't
And that
assign even
seems to work well for this.
titles of staff.
City's
to
a
be-
little bit bigger than ours.
But yes,
That's what I'm saying.
what will help if we were to develop a community-oriented P and Z board or commission, I would like to receive input on.
How many people?
But can we look at some neighboring areas and see like what they have, just to kind of get an idea, and then we'll just kind of like look at that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
About the makeup of their board? Okay.
You know, monthly, only.
Oh, how often do they review?
You know, during, you know, an afternoon.
Thank you, Sam.
Does Staples have a city council?
They're incorporated. They have a little city hall. They're
They'll believe.
Yeah.
They've
got a mayor. Incorporated.
Yeah,
Oh.
we got a mayor.
incorporated barber shop.
You know what we should, is it Terralinga that has a goat as their mayor?
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Future items?
I think future item, I would like to
It's
have that on the
10/26
agenda
February.
for an action item to,
Initiate city staff,
Uh-huh.
direct city staff,
I already,
seek applicants and provide an ordinance.
Tommy?
yeah,
Good, Jan. All
I
right.
already made sure. We did
Okay,
that.
let's
Come
go.
up with a
Any-
statement. And
Okay.
We need
for us,
one at a time.
How much time we got here today? We got quite a few.
Is it, okay, so anything to
We can
add to
we can
future
subtract the holiday.
agenda
checks.
items would be,
We could combine.
planning and zoning commission, we'll keep that on there. So
Okay, I
that was
want
more
to,
positive than I expected.
We're good.
eventually, we got to start to talk about the parks though, and how we're gonna have them function before next summer comes. And I want it to be just an open dialogue discussion about, are we gonna start to charge? How are we gonna generate more revenue for our parks? We just acquired some more land. And we put this off and put this off, but I also know Jared had spoken about, he wants to get together and really finish some of the ordinances that we have been working on. And I don't know when that's supposed to happen, that's gonna take another workshop or
We'll
whatever.
talk after Christmas.
So we talked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
let's do
As
that.
far as that goes, I think I could get a hold of it. That
Did you meet-
data.
Did you meet
Remember
Kimberly?
that workshop that we had?
Kimberly?
Met-
I think I know a way to get around Jared on that.
Her and her husband Walt, but they work in San Marcos. But she's part of the parks of San Marcos. I think she runs parks in San Marcos.
Oh, the Parks and Rec person, she was at the thing that
Yeah,
Mike and
and
I
she's-
went, and the
she's
mayor went to.
awesome. She's a great human being. I've known her forever.
Yeah.
But she was she's really enticed by coming here and talking to us and helping us kind of give us,
Tell San Marcos to get a can ban.
get a, totally.
Mike McLeod.
Just have like some kind of.
Order in the court.
Towards how we could monetize our parks in a
Oh
green
my
and like,
God.
more positive fashion.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
do it. And
I think-
I'm ready to
But
just stay in the
San
parks.
Marcos said they don't want to charge any money, and they don't charge any money.
parking. No,
Yeah.
she does.
If they're not
do
doing
like
anything, we're having
parking
to
and
do
then,
all
like,
the work.
how she organizes the labor that they use.
Well, they have more money that they allocate because of revenue, but they don't charge for parking and they don't charge to go in
Okay,
into the
we're,
parks.
this is discussion.
You're right.
This is just a quick discussion, but okay, that's it. I'll speak to her, but I would like it to be a future agenda item. We need to start to talk about
But
this.
like on that, can we just have a workshop?
A
Yeah,
workshop, it
that's-
has to be a
Put
workshop
it in a email to the
after
mayor
Christmas.
and the city administrator.
Wow, that's a name.
And it'll
Okay.
be on the next
What
amendment.
is our?
May we have, our next one is December 8th.
And
December
that
8th.
Well,
agenda
no, we only got one Monday.
When
That
is-
agenda is already,
Our next.
I thought you,
Christmas Day.
I mean, 25th, yeah.
I thought you
Monday, we
said
got a
we.
meeting Monday.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make
for
a motion to-
adjournment?
Wait, I have one other quick question. I thought we were gonna maybe have a meeting on the 28th.
No,
Oh, no, it got canceled.
Oh,
It got
Yeah,
moved,
canceled.
the one on the 28th. I'm
I thought
glad
that
you
was-
asked that.
Okay.
I won't be here on the 8th.
You're not gonna be here.
The applicant requested to move it to January. So that was a P and Z meeting.
Hmm.
And that's for that commercial property on. one
it's
to go-
for the
On
convenience
highway.
store.
Okay, so it's put off, that's fine.
It's put
Yes,
off
that's
right
good.
now, so
Okay.
that's good. Because that would have been next Monday, but instead, we have to have that 5-minute special meeting on Monday.
5 minutes.
And the,
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Okay, I make a motion, I second.
the